baby gorillas, and we're back in business on Blue Star. Oh, what have we got today? Oh my goodness, what's going on? Oh, let's see it. Labour Party, Labour, Peterborough. Oh my goodness, what's going on here? Oh dear, 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 dear. Oh. Oh my goodness, anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. Oh, I wonder how that could have happened. Whoa, what's going on here? Let's go to my friend from Rotten Politics. He's done a great job here. Let's do this, shall we? I'm going to use all of his segment here. Fantastic, very interesting. You should subscribe to Rotten Politics, my baby gorillas as well.
Hey everyone and welcome. In this video we're going to be looking at more bigotry in the self-proclaimed anti-racism party, Labour.
Anti-Semitism, obviously, not so much.
If Labour are anything of the sort, I'm the Queen of Sheba, just saying. Now it's titled, Labour Suspends 14 over Anti-Semitism.
Oh my goodness, I wonder where the anti-Semitism originally comes from with these people. There's a connection. Islam, maybe communism, with anti-Semitic, bit like National Socialism, all anti-Semitic. Obviously, Islam is on the right, authoritarian right of the spectrum, whereas National Socialism and communism is on the authoritarian left. Oh, interesting that David Duke and Nick Griffin were both supporting the Labour Party under Corbyn. Oh, it's so interesting, isn't it? I wonder if there's a tie-up there anywhere.
Tories are urged to expel councillors. It's actually 16, but 2 aren't councillors, so we'll let them off with that one. This time, over half of Labour's sitting councillors on Peterborough City Council have dramatically, and quietly I might add, been suspended by the Labour Party for sharing and promoting anti-Semitism and extremism. Nothing new there then, is there? Notice how it says suspended and not arrested and put on a hate register? Just a thought.
Yeah, it seems one rule for one, one for another. Oh, is that the social justice, right? So the social justice isn't justice. It's one rule for one, one for another. Right. Just getting it all tickety-boo and clear.
Rules for the...
rules for me, not for me. That's correct. That's it. Let's have a look at what pop-up baby gorillas are saying. Let's go. Sorry about that, Mr. Rotten Politics.
The councillors, the majority of whom were exposed as having used convicted vote rigger Tariq Mahmood.
Now, I would suspect that he should have been banned before he was in the actual count. If he was a vote rigger from the last election, I would have thought that you wouldn't allow people who have been rigging the ballot and corrupting the democratic process anywhere near a count. That would just be my thoughts. In fact, I would have suspended them from the Labour Party if the Labour Party had any true convictions for democracy. That's just my thought. It's not that he should have been there with Jeremy Corbyn under the last Peterborough count. They only just won from the Brexit Party.
Remember him? That's a picture of him. Convicted and rehired for our last election, I might add, to win their seats. Have a history of being mired in scandal. Yet today, the vile group finally paid the price for their bigotry and hate.
Oh my goodness, that's horrendous, isn't it? It's almost as if these people are institutionally anti-Semitic, isn't it, in the Labour Party? That's terrible. What the Jews have suffered over the years as well. Terrible.
14 members have been suspended in total by both Peterborough and Cambridgeshire Labour CLPs. Among them are the following. Are we ready for this one? Obviously Tariq Mahmood, but then we've...
Tariq Mahmood, the vote rigger.
Got Councillor Ansar Ali, Richards...
It doesn't tell you why, if these are being anti-Semitism there in the Labour Party there.
Strangwood, Councillor Angus Ellis. Colin and Linda Watson, couldn't find a picture of them for some reason. Councillor Samantha Hemraj, Kit Huback, same again, couldn't find a picture for him either. Or her, not too sure on that name. Councillor Mahoob Hussain, Councillor Shabina Kayum, Councillor Joseph, and Councillor
Shia Joseph, okay. I don't know if she's a convert.
Mohammed Jamil. Councillor Kayum was frequently exposed for incidents including harassing local residents. Should we watch proof of that? Here's a tweet. Exclusive. Councillor Mohammed Jamil and other Labour councillors connected to convicted vote rigger Tariq Mahmood in Peterborough.
And don't forget, as I said, they only just beat the Labour Party. I think there has to be a tightening up, maybe ID for voting as well. No vote harvesting. I would take away electoral ballots unless it was a necessity, obviously, with this one. But with postal ballots, it gives a greater chance of actually having corruption of the democratic process.
Peterborough filmed themselves harassing and mocking local residents simply for supporting the Conservatives. Now,
I don't mock anybody apart from Peter Adam Smith and Paul Hutchins, because they abuse their positions of authority in our society. But I don't mock anybody, even like Georgie Porgy. I only mock those up. I don't mock people who are just ordinary voters. I have conversations with them even if I don't agree with them.
Fuck you, man. What's all this Tory bullshit these boys are being getting?
I'm sure he's more than capable of being a councillor.
Where are you? Where are you? He's trying to push fucking Tories in our head. We're fucking sick of it. He's lost, mate. He's lost. I always had good things to say to him, but not anymore. Oh shit, you got Sabina there as well. Sorry.
That gentleman seemed to be quite portly, and we obviously know that in our ethnic minority communities that they have been suffering quite a lot from the COVID virus, and we already know that being portly is potentially a threat to your life. So I would suggest that maybe we educate our ethnic minorities in reduction of weight and a healthier living style.
We're just slagging off the Tories, the Tory supporter there. How are you? You right?
Fine.
Yeah, good. Good. Yeah, all good.
Thank you for your support.
Yeah, always.
It shows you the type of really disgusting people that are in the Labour Party. I mean, though Keir Starmer might lose the Hartlepool election, even if he does lose that, I mean, the lack of talent in the Labour Party is just absolutely staggering.
Disgraceful behaviour, in my opinion. Now, they're being also accused of postal vote fraud and for tagging a vile Holocaust denial into her official campaign posts on social media.
Terrible anti-Semitism. Disgusting in the Labour Party. I think it was found guilty. Let's just check if it was found. We obviously know that the Labour Party found Watchdog finds Labour guilty of inexcusable failure to tackle anti-Semitism. Oh my goodness. What's going on here? Oh, Mr. Corbyn. So obviously this is endemic in the Labour Party under Keir Starmer and Anas Sarwar, who's funnily enough also a Muslim. My goodness, I don't know what's happening here. That seems quite shocking, isn't it? That they've actually been found guilty. I think only the Labour Party and the BNP have ever been found guilty of these types of situations. Labour broke equality law. Oh, they're pushing equality to break it. Oh, that's very clever. And handling of anti-Semitism. An investigation by Human Rights Watchdog has concluded. Oh my goodness, damning. A damning report by the Equality and Human Rights Commission found the party was responsible responsible for unlawful acts of harassment and discrimination. Oh, that's very interesting. For a party that doesn't like to discriminate, it likes to discriminate. Oh, I see. Is that the double think that the boys from the fetus eaters were talking about earlier on? Fantastic. Good, lovely bunch of guys. We'll get to the fetus eaters in a minute. The investigation found evidence of political interference by the then leader Jeremy Corbyn, but I think it's endemic now. The combination of the far left, the loon ball left, the communists who've killed 100 million people, and the Islamists, both anti-Semitic in nature, both due to their ideology. Oh my goodness. Office in complaints process, a move likely to add to the party's bitter civil war over the handling of anti-Semitism. Oh my goodness, I hate the Jews during this time. And I think this is ideological hatred of the Jews, just like National Socialism was. So National Socialism, Communism and Islam always hate the Jews. EHRC's interim chair Caroline Waters said there had been an inexcusable failures which appeared to be the result of the lack of willingness to tackle anti-Semitism rather than an inability to do so. The EHRC identified serious failings in the Labour Party leadership in addressing anti-Semitism. I don't think it's the leadership. I think it's intrinsic to the base. So I think it's Islam and the communists that are now in, kidding on the socialists, but the communists that are in the Labour Party who hate Jews. And that's what my thoughts are as well. Process for handling anti-Semitism. And we've already seen in other clips, I'm not going to go into today, the Labour Party doing some awful things to Jewish people in the UK. The political interference and complaints failure to provide adequate training to those handling anti-Semitism cases and harassment. Miss Waters said the Labour Party made a commitment to zero tolerance for anti-Semitism. Our investigations have highlighted multiple areas where its approach and leadership to tackling anti-Semitism was insufficient. Oh my goodness, insufficient, terrible. This is inexcusable and appears to be the result of a lack of willingness to tackle anti-Semitism rather than an inability to do so. And a lack of willingness. So maybe they've advanced a wee bit here, but you would think that corrupting the democratic process would be something that you would want to get rid of somebody for. I mean, that to me is just absolutely reprehensible, that somebody is corrupting and being prepared to actually destroy the democratic process for their own nefarious ends. Maybe these clowns would not have been in had there not been corruption in the democratic process. Oh dear, 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 dear. What's happening at the weekend? I don't know what is happening the weekend. Oh, there's I think there's something in a march in Glasgow. I think there's a march in Glasgow, Hank. The party has been served with an unlawful act notice and has been given until the 10th of December to draft an action plan to implement the report's recommendations, which is legally enforceable by the courts if it is not fulfilled. All right. Let's go back to our friends in Rotten Politics. Oh, fantastic, great bunch.
All were found to have shared anti-Semitic content, including the claim that Jews were carrying out the final solution in Palestine.
Oh my goodness, blaming the Jews. Oh my god, what? Dear. Isn't it hatred of Israel? Hatred of Israel, isn't it? Hatred. They hate anybody else that's not in their cult.
Others shared a vile video from an Islamist extremist and hate preacher who is banned from entering the UK.
Oh my goodness, extremists in the council. Oh, that's terrible. Absolutely disgusting what's happening in Peterborough.
Prominent Labour activists in Peterborough, Richard Strangwood, Alan Gasparuti and Colin and Linda Watson are also said to have been suspended.
They're like Nazis. That's what they're like Nazis. The Nazi Labour Party, the Gimps, the Gimp Labour Party, the globalist Islamo-Marxist Party. I was completely correct when I said to Mr. Sarwar'S, wasn't I? Oh, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. I believe they're doing goose-stepping lessons at the next Labour Party conference. Oh, fantastic.
Candidate Gasparuti was exposed as having made numerous hateful comments on social media, including...
Oh, well, that's nice. That's very nice.
For this one, supporting the IRA claiming terrorism brings peace. You heard that?
What? Yes.
Right, terrorism brings peace.
Oh, that could potentially go two ways.
Labour sources told Jewish News Today it was no surprise at all to them that at least 14 individuals from Peterborough Party had been suspended, 16 in total. This is an area that had significant problems with anti-Semitism and racism in the past. It is about time that leadership moved to put a stop to this, even if we are days away from a general election. Existing political structures have been ramshackle in the region for some time, to say the least. Now, what gets me as well, Tariq Mahmood, the vote rigger, the convicted vote rigger, has been rehired again, everyone.
Oh, right. So not banning him from the Labour Party. Obviously, because the Labour Party can't win on their own merits, they've got to get a vote rigger, a convicted vote rigger, back into their party and corrupt the democratic process. All right. That makes sense, doesn't it?
The local elections. Nothing suspect there then, eh? In my opinion, it's nothing new to us at Labour and the vile, bigoted scum that they prove themselves to be. They don't deserve the ability...
Well, I think they're a global Islamo-Marxist party, aren't they now? Anti-Semitic.
...to run as one of the two parties, in my opinion. They brand our nation what they are proving themselves to be the worst of. Look, time for Labour to go. But I'd like to know your opinion. Let me know what you think, everyone. If you can help out the channel, please do so using PayPal or even become a member on Patreon. It really would help out.
Oh my goodness, what's going on here? Look at this. Oh, Labour councillors suspended in Labour Party, Labour anti-Semitism probe. Oh dear. Oh, there's it. Well, what's going on with all these characters? Oh, nothing shady here, nothing to see here. 7 city councillors are among a group suspended by the Labour Party, except the vote rigger. He's back in. Obviously, I don't know what he's doing. Wouldn't like to cast any aspersions. They might be vote rigging again, would they, for the Labour Party? Now, you would think to preserve the democratic process, you wouldn't have vote riggers in your party. But obviously, Labour might not care as much about the democratic process. The 7 city councillors are among a group suspended by the Labour Party over alleged anti-Semitism. Oh, that's nice. The Peterborough city councillors and 7 other, and obviously this is from the BBC, an hour ago on the 29th of the 4th, 2021. The Peterborough City Councillors and 7 other party members from the City and North West are facing an internal party investigation. It is understood that councillors Ansar Ali, Angus Ellis, Samantha Himraj, Mohammed Jamil, Shabina Quayum, Mahmoud Hussein and Aisha Joseph are suspended. Oh my goodness. Wow, that's disastrous for the Labour Party. Obviously the Labour Party are going nowhere and you should vote for somebody else, ladies and gents. The Labour Party said it took all complaints of anti-Semitism and being a bunch of Nazis very seriously. Oh yeah, I would suspect we should. I think that's pretty much the way. The Labour National Socialist Gimp Party said complaints are fully investigated in line with our rules and procedures, and any appropriate disciplinary action is taken. Oh, is it? Oh, that's great, isn't it? Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Nuremberg trials, is it? Oh, that's very interesting. Good evening, how are you doing? Socialist hate Jews. Jews, nothing new, that's right. National Socialist, Communists, all the socialists, they see capitalism as a Jewish conspiracy. We are determined to root out all forms of anti-Semitism from our party, and it is testament to our commitment to zero tolerance of being a Nazi party that we will not be influenced by an election timetable, they added. Oh, that's very interesting. Still the vote rigger. Where is the vote rigger? Let's see the vote rigger. Oh, look at this, ladies and gents. Oh, fantastic. So this is the 8th of the 6th, 2019. Oh, not too long ago. Oh, the vote rigger's back. Oh, good. How to corrupt the political system. This is Mail Online. Oh, fantastic. Labour's by-election victory is marred by claims that a convicted vote rigger, the same guy that's back in this time, was at the centre of a campaign after he was pictured with Corbyn and a new MP at the centre of anti-Semitism storm. Oh, that's great. So this guy's a criminal and he's back with the Labour Party managing their corrupt democratic processes, apparently. Tariq Mahmood received 15 months prison sentence in 2008 for voter fraud, is he? Oh, well, I would suggest we have to have IDs to show for casting our votes to prevent this sort of malarkey. And reduce postal votes so that we don't have this opportunity for vote harvesting and other anti-democratic processes. The Labour branded the allegations false and baseless. Well, it's not really false and baseless considering he spent 15 months in prison, is it? Can't be really false and baseless. And I think they just narrowly beat the Brexit Party yesterday and said he was not involved in any way. Oh, was he not? Oh, well, apparently he's going to be back involved in this one. Oh, great. This article was by Brendan Carlin and Ross Slater for the Mail on Sunday on the 9th of June 2019. Updated on 20... Labour's narrow victory in the Peterborough by-election was marred by this character, a convicted criminal, last night by claims that a convicted vote rigger was at the centre of the Labour Party campaign. Oh, the Labour Nazi Party, this gentleman here. Jeremy Corbyn faced claims that an ex-Labour member jailed for postal vote scam had provided vital help in fighting off Nigel Farage's Brexit Party by just 683 votes. Oh, the guy that was in jail for 15 months for vote rigging and now back at the Labour Party in Peterborough. All right. Ah, that's very interesting. The anti-Semitic Peterborough Labour Party. Oh, goodness. You start drawing wee moustaches on them. Jeremy Corbyn faces claims that an ex-Labour MP jailed for postal vote scam that provided vital help in fighting off Nigel Farage's Brexit Party. Probably that could have corrupted us with such a small amount of votes. That could have corrupted the full process. And there should have been the first Brexit Party MP in Westminster. Not that obviously now with the Reform Party it's a different party. Ex-local Labour branch secretary Tariq Mahmood received a 15-month prison sentence in 2008 for his part in a scheme to fabricate votes for Peterborough council elections. Oh, well, that's fantastic. That is. I can see the donkeys that you managed to bring in. Absolutely, all these guys have now been suspended. Not that they're guilty until they've gone through the the legal process, but obviously when we already know that anti-Semitism is rife here. Oh, fantastic, good stuff. While local Tories claim Mahmood pictured sporting a red rosette, obviously the global Islamo-Marxist party, at the by-election count was front and centre of Labour's bid to mobilise the Muslim vote. Ah, right, I see. He was photographed with Labour leader, obviously, because nobody else is going to be voting for the Labour Party anymore, Jeremy Corbyn, last month, as well as being pictured with eventual by-election winner Lisa Forbes. Labour branded allegations false and baseless. Well, we already know that this guy's a vote rigger, and why is he involved in the democratic process? He's already convicted of being a vote rigger. Why is he able to be in the process? Why is the Labour Party allowed a convicted vote rigger to be involved in the democratic process? The party sources also claim it was factually incorrect to claim Labour had won because of the Muslim vote, pointing out that Peterborough was 82.5% white. But the row erupted after Labour MPs privately told the Mail on Sunday they were hoping the sizeable Muslim vote would come to the party's rescue last week. Last night, Wayne Fitzgerald, deputy leader of the Conservative-run Peterborough Council, said Tariq Mahmood is a villain. Well, he's certainly a corrupter of the process and been found guilty of it. He was front and centre of the Labour campaign within the Muslim community. We received postal fraud and personation, which I think is impersonating somebody else within the large urban central part of the city where Labour vote is strongest. Former Peterborough Tory MP Stuart Jackson said Tariq Mahmood should not be involved in politics at all, which is completely correct. He certainly shouldn't be involved in anything to do with the votes. He has a record for vote fraud, and the fact that he is so close to the Labour campaign speaks volumes about the rottenness of the current Labour Party, which is not incorrect.
Council staff have had to run 4 elections in the space of a month, and their professionalism and commitment is a real credit to Peterborough. Thanks must also go to my opponents. Putting yourself forward to stand for election is never easy. To my agent and campaign team and our amazing activists. Over many months, thank you. Finally, to the people of Peterborough, there have been many in recent months who claim democracy in this country is broken.
It's certainly broken in the Labour Party.
But you have proven them wrong. A democracy only works
if you get a strong and accurate vote, and the vote is not being corrupted.
when people make their voices heard on the issues that matter to them and their families. I thought this campaign on safer streets, more investment for our schools, and a better deal for Peterborough. The fact that you have turned up in such large numbers is a testament to the fact that many here are desperate to see Peterborough change for the better.
By corrupting the political process.
Despite differing opinions across our city, the fact that the Brexit Party have been rejected here in Peterborough
by somebody who is a vote rigger. Especially if we cheat.
For every community in Peterborough, tonight's victory is significant because it has shown that the politics of hope can win, regardless of the odds.
Politics of the Gimp party.
The people of Peterborough have placed their trust in me, and I will not let you down. I promise to work tirelessly for Peterborough to make it a city that we can all be proud of, and that work starts now. Thank you very much.
So,
I'm very...
and there is the gentleman there with Jeremy Corbyn. So obviously, we're not sure what's going on there. Obviously, Jeremy Corbyn is still an MP, and I'm not sure if he actually accepts the corruption of the democratic process. He was photographed with Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn last month, as well as being pictured with eventual by-election leader Lisa Forbes. Oh, disgusting. 6 men, 3 Labour supporters and 3 Tories were convicted of electoral fraud after a painstaking operation by Cambridge police relating to a 2004 local investigation. All were jailed. Dozens of voters in Central Ward had turned up. So I would suggest that if there's implications of voter fraud, that the person who the voter fraud has been used to elect has to stand down, and there has to be a rerun of the election. The person should not be allowed in power if they have committed voter fraud, or the people behind them have committed voter fraud. Dozens of voters in the Central Ward have turned up at polling stations to vote in the city centre's elections, only to be told that they've already submitted a postal vote. And this just shows you how easy it is to corrupt the democratic process through postal votes. Last year, Mahmood, who ran a letting agency, was accused of racism for calling Home Secretary, oh, these guys are just disgusting, Sajid Javid a coconut on Facebook. All right. So, I mean, that to me is a racial slur. A racial slur aimed at these deemed to be betraying their heritage. And Mahmood, what heritage is that? Is that the British heritage you're talking about, Mahmood? Admitted yesterday that he had canvassed for Labour in the by-election, but Mahmood, who also said he had always denied voter fraud, insists it is quite wrong to say that I played a significant role in Labour's victory. Well, they seem to be wanting you to hang about quite a lot anyway. Labour, Lisa Forbes won, he said, because she ran a brilliant local campaign about issues that mattered to people ran here, like schools, health and fly tipping. I added, I met Jeremy Corbyn once when he came to Peterborough last night. I am a supporter and has been a Labour supporter since I was 10. Peterborough said that the postal vote system has been tightened up, with Peterborough having a national reputation for its work to determine voter fraud. Yeah, that usually means they haven't done anything, but well, I'll wait to be seen. Labour were forced into the by-election after recalling a petition ousting sitting MP Fiona Onasanya, who had been involved, convicted of lying to the police about speeding. Local unions official Lisa Forbes, a mother of 4, is already facing calls from the Jewish Labour movement to be suspended over liking a social media post that referred to Theresa May serving a Zionist slave master agenda. Oh, come on. And she had to apologise. Oh, disgusting. It's endemic, the Jewish hatred in the Labour Party. It's endemic. He apologised and said that liking the tweet, which showed children praying after the Christchurch terror attack in New Zealand, had been an error. However, fellow Labour MP Wes Streeting has said that Miss Forbes will have to work to show she is genuinely committed to tackling anti-Semitism. Oh, well, obviously it's just getting worse, because that was 2 years ago, and this fellow's back leading the Labour Party. And all these people have all been suspended. Oh, let's go back and see if there's any more interesting stories. Oh, dear, dear, dear. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Oh.
Repeated failure to implement the recommendations of previous reports into anti-Semitism. A culture that is, and I quote, at odds with the Labour Party's commitment to zero tolerance of anti-Semitism.
I don't think you've got zero tolerance to anti-Semitism at all. I think you're a bunch of Nazis, the globalist Islamo-Marxist party.
And perhaps most telling of all, a clear breakdown of trust between the Labour Party, many of its members, and the Jewish community.
Because you're doing goose-stepping lessons in the next, what do you call it, national conference.
I found this report hard to read, and it is a day of
well, obviously, some of the people that are in the Labour Party didn't read it at all.
For the Labour Party. We have failed Jewish people.
And continue to do so.
Our supporters and the British public. And so, on behalf of the Labour Party...
See Kyle? See Kyle?
Sorry.
I didn't even touch that there. That was amazing. I just went back on there. Count Dank should do something on this with the pug.
The pain and grief that has been caused. To Jewish people, our Jewish members, our long-standing Jewish affiliate, JLM.
Who have all left and joined the Conservative Party.
To the people driven out of our party.
Driven out? Oh my God, that sounds like pre-Hitler, doesn't it? That sounds like the rise of Hitler. From the Gimps, globalist Islamo-Marxist. Oh, terrible, driving people out.
The Jewish members driven out of Parliament.
Oh my God, it just gets worse, doesn't it? Oh, jeez. Oh, Jewish people driven out of Parliament. Bloody. Give them stars next.
Including Louise Ellman and Luciana Berger. And to the members of the Labour Party staff who spoke...
You don't like Jews either.
Yeah. I want to say this.
Heil Hitler.
I know how hard these last few years have been for you, how painful today will be, and how hard you had to fight to have your voices heard.
We're not changing. Oh, here we go. Oh, where'd that go? Oh, it always mucks it up. Labour Party scandal sees Starmer suspend 9 Peterborough councillors, 9, over anti-Semitism. It's like the rise of the Third Reich, isn't it? All the Islamo-fascists in the Labour Party. Oh my God! I don't know who's using who. Is the communists using the Muslims, or is the Muslims using the communists? You just can't tell these days, can you? The Labour Party has suspended more than half of the party's councillors in Peterborough over allegations of anti-Semitism, and this is expressed by David Falvey, and this was on the 29th of April 2021. Oh my goodness. 7 of the party's elected representatives have been suspended just weeks after 2 other councillors had the Labour whip withdrawn. It means that 9 of the party's 17 councillors in Peterborough have been suspended over the past month. It means 9 of the party's 17, so the majority of the party's Labour councillors in Peterborough have been suspended over the past month. Oh my goodness. Another 4 members of the local party are said to have been suspended, including 2 candidates for the city council elections in May the 6th. Because they had their SS uniforms. They joined National Action. They're going, no, I don't know. What do you mean? I didn't know we weren't allowed in. What's the problem? It's only National Action. The Muslims, they've got the Muslim section in there as well. Peterborough City Council has been run by the Conservative Party for more than 20 years, with Labour hoping this year was their chance to take control. In total, the councillors suspended were Anis Ali, Angus Ellis Brenton, Samantha Hemorrhage East, Mahmood, Hussein Central, Shabina, Quayam, Aisha Joseph Park, and Mohammed Jamel Central. Now, I don't know if these people are going to be standing. They'll probably increase the majority, knowing they're all a bunch of Nazis. And remember, it's unclear exactly what the allegations against these against the councillors. Yeah, they're all anti-Semitic. Keir Starmer has been forced to suspend over half the party's Peterborough councillors. A Labour Party councillor said the Labour Party takes all complaints of anti-Semitism extremely seriously, unless they're in the Quran or in Das Kapital. And then we just kid on that's not there, because there's one rule for one for another, and they are fully investigated in line with our rules and procedures, and any appropriate disciplinary action is taken. We are all determined to root out all forms of anti-Semitism from our party, and it's testament to our commitment to zero tolerance that we will not be influenced by an election timetable. The party said it would not be committed while the investigation into the allegations were carried out. A spokesman for the Jewish Leadership Council warned this is a specific and identifiable problem in Peterborough politics that needs to be resolved, that they've all joined the Fourth Reich. Labour has faced accusations of anti-Semitism in Peterborough in the past. Yeah, Lisa Forbes, who was the city's MPs, and there was no vote rigging to get elected at all by the guy that was convicted of vote rigging. Nothing to see here. After a June 2019 by-election until the December general election later that year, and was forced to apologise for liking a social media post that said Theresa May had a Zionist slave master's agenda. Oh my goodness, Zionist slave master's agenda? Oh, for goodness sake, that is absolutely unbelievable, isn't it? Oh, nothing to see. And I don't want to cast any aspersions on Anis Sarwar being anti-Semitic at all. I realise he's a Muslim, and Islam is anti-Semitic in nature, a bit like the Nazis. But there's no point of reference. I think Anis Sarwar is just anti-white. I think that's his problem. He hates white people. Although he's obviously came to this country. I think we should maybe play a wee segment from that, should we? Should we all just remember what Anis Sarwar said? Anis. Come on, stop being silly. Anis. Oh, here we go. Oh, Jason Rankin. Oh, he's fantastic. James Rankin.
Every chief executive of every council and every government department, white. Every director of a department in Scotland, white. Every principal of a college or university in Scotland, white. Every head teacher in Scotland, white. Every chair of a public sector body in Scotland, white. Every High Court judge in Scotland, white. Every prison governor in Scotland, white. Every editor of a news organisation in Scotland, white. Why?
I'm not saying there's a problem with Muslims, but there seems to be a problem with Muslims just now in the UK. If they're not corrupting the process, they're making completely openly racist statements in the Scottish Parliament. Oh, I mean, that's just unbelievable as well, isn't it? Oh, my goodness. Oh, for goodness sake. And I don't know if there's anything else we want to say about this, is there? Oh, Peterborough MP calls for shadow of anti-Semitism to be urgently tackled. Oh, there he is there, this gentleman here. Let's see what this is saying. Jewish News, my favourite periodical. Peterborough MP calls for shadow of anti-Semitism to be urgently tackled. This is by Lee Harpin. Paul Bristow invites the GLC to help address the problem directly after the City Labour and Tory parties were engulfed by Jew hate. Now, that's not me saying, that's obviously the Jewish Times saying, but Jew hate, which I do agree. This week, with numerous councillors suspended. Terrible. Peterborough's Conservative MP, Paul Bristow, has called for the shadow of anti-Semitism that has engulfed the city's political scene to be tackled. The parliamentarian spoke out after Jewish News revealed shocking allegations of anti-Jewish for members of both the Labour and Conservative Party in the region. Bristow spoke out after the Labour suspended 40 for alleged anti-Semitism, including 7 councillors. Meanwhile, Peterborough Tories took action on Wednesday after a similar claims emerged among at least 4 local activists, including sitting councillors. Oh, dear. So this was on the 29th of April as well, 2021. So the local Peterborough Telegraph newspaper put the story across in its front page on Thursday with the headline, "A Stain on Our City. Bristow and Peterborough MP, I take councillors and candidates very seriously. The Jewish Leadership Council is right to say that there is a specific and identifiable problem of anti-Semitism in our city's politics. I invite GLC representatives to come to Peterborough to meet and address this problem directly. I hope the faith groups, including representatives from Peterborough's liberal Jewish community, councillors and the local political parties will participate in the meeting. We must lift the shadow over the politics in our city." Oh my goodness. GLC UK, so this is for a tweet which I'm obviously banned on Twitter thanks to the cancel mob. And obviously Jack interfering in Scottish politics, British politics, are right to say there is a specific and identifiable problem of anti-Semitism in our city's politics. I've invited them, I don't know who them is, to Peterborough to help me address issues directly with the councillors from all parties. We lift the shadow of over politics in our city. Obviously, you're limited with characters in this as well, but I would like to know who them are. Incumbent on all parties to improve the understanding and tackle unacceptable actions. Wednesday, Peterborough Collective Conservatives suspended Isaf Hussain, the party's candidate for local Dogsthorpe ward, on May the 6th. Oh my goodness. His posts include claims Jewish people living in Israel are not true Jews, and Israel is part of a Zionist trilogy alongside America and Saudi Arabia, which bred terrorism. There's no terrorists come from anywhere else. He has also previously turned his profile picture into an image with the caption, "The person does not recognise this person does not recognise the state of Israel," while claiming that Zionism is one of the worst afflictions on the world. This is it. Oh, this is the guy that the Conservative Party have picked, is it? Oh, aye. And the Zionists will. And the Zionists, with the help of the UK and America, have already occupied 85% of Palestine. Labour suspended 14 over. Oh, aye. Labour suspends 14 over anti-Semitism. Tories urge to expel councillors. Both parties in Peterborough are rocked by claims of Jew hatred. Disgusting. That's why you should vote for the UK Reform Party. They're bunch ahead of the local elections, with at least 7 elected Labour officials accused of anti-Semitism. Yeah, you need to clear them all out. Just vote for the UK Reform Party in Peterborough. By the Labour and Conservative parties in the city of Peterborough have been rocked by serious allegations of anti-Semitism among members just 1 week before the UK goes to the polls for local elections. Labour have moved to suspend at least 14 individuals, including at least 7 councillors from the Peterborough and North Cambridgeshire CLP. Some in recent days after being alerted. So the other 7 are after being alerted to circulations of anti-Semitic tropes and alleged Zionist control of leader Sir Keir Starmer, along with the videos of hate speech of the extremists. Oh, well, that's good. Well, Peterborough is obviously going in the sort of right direction, isn't it? It's obviously moving along in the correct direction. It's the war on genes, the war of God's children. Save the children. Graham, I thought there was a big one, a big May 1 thing. I haven't heard. Something happened in. David, something happened in Holyrood. Holyrood, oh my goodness, what day is this? This is the 29th. Holyrood Palace, a man arrested after bomb squad scrambled to Queen's Edinburgh residence over suspicious item. Police seen searching drains underneath cars after a 39-year-old charged. Oh my goodness. A man has been arrested after a bomb disposal team was called to reports of a suspicious item at the Queen's official residence in Edinburgh. Scotland said they were called to the grounds of the palace at 8:50 p.m. on Tuesday. This is in the Independent, and it was written by Chichari Giordano and Lizzie Dearden. Independent understanding the suspicious item was made to look like a bomb. After being examined, it was found not to be a viable device. Investigators believe it may have been a hoax and not currently treating the incident as terror-related. The 39-year-old man was arrested in connection with the incident, has been charged and will appear in Edinburgh Sheriff Court on Tuesday. Police said there was no threat to the public. Inquiries continue on Wednesday. A spokesman for Police Scotland said, "We call Palace on Holyrood House, Abbey Strand, Edinburgh at 8:50 p.m. on Tuesday the 23rd of March following a report of a suspicious item." That's interesting. Man has appeared and charged in connection with the incident is due to appear in Edinburgh Sheriff Court on Tuesday. Palace officers were spotted carrying out searches of the ground at Holyrood. Officers carrying long sticks were seen methodically the forecourt and grass outside the building in Edinburgh. Interesting, isn't it? What I was saying, a party spokesman confirmed on Wednesday that the party had taken the decision to suspend 14 individuals. My goodness. They added that they have taken the action now ahead of the May the 6th election as part of the leadership's determination to root out. Now, I don't know if these people will be allowed to stand in the election if they're under suspicion. So I don't know if they'll be barred from actually standing. All forms of anti-Semitism, our party, and its testament to our commitment to zero tolerance that we will not be influenced by an election timetable. It's understood that those administratively suspended by the party and facing investigation into allegations including anti-Semitism or blah blah blah, I've already read them out. Those suspended from North Cambridgeshire CLP include Janet Armstrong and Jonathan Orchard. Labour said they would not be commenting further on investigations into allegations of anti-Semitism at this time. The Tories are facing calls to act over allegations made against at least 3 local members who are either sitting councillors or candidates, including one individual who shared article that claimed Israel was carrying out the final solution in Gaza, and who also circulated a speech by hate speech banned from entering the UK after being shown images circulated by one of the Peterborough Tory party, Andrew Percy, chair of party parliamentary group on anti-Semitism, told Jewish News he had asked for their immediate removal from the party. But I'm still gobsmacked that they haven't removed the other fellow. Wonder if there's the same person who put one in the charity clothes bin dry run. I don't know about that. There was a march in Glasgow last Saturday. It was a woman and child mainly, was brilliant, but got at the end by Freedom Alliance doing speeches. I dislike all parties. Marion, I don't know what you've put there. It's been redacted. And also Michael's, I wish they would stop redacting your comments. I don't know if you've done it or they've done it, the YouTube's done it, but I wish they would stop writing this. Not a socialist thing, anti-lockdown, medical fascism, pro-freedom, but not just as far as the SNP define it. Yeah, I'll check on that, Paul, thanks. It's a war on our genes happening at Holyrood, Paul. There's I think there's a a meeting with the Scottish Libertarian Party. I think it's on the 1st. When is the 1st? That would be Saturday. I think there's something happening down at Holyrood on Saturday. Some hustings type thing. I'm not sure. I'm sure there's a hustings on May the 1st off the top of my head in Edinburgh. But I'm not sure what else is happening. But I mean, really unbelievable from and about the Conservative Party. What else have you got? I put up a poll. I didn't know how to do the polls, and now I know how to do polls. Have a look at this. What's your channel? And then you go into community, and then we've got a wee quote. I think this is brilliant. Greta Thunberg, stop sending me this, it's not me. And I put plant more trees. That's definitely Greta there. Nice, polluting the planet. Nice one. He's very nice one. And what have we got here? So we haven't, we've got a few specifications. So the Scottish Libertarian Party is sitting at 13%, the Reform Scotland Party 13%, Reclaim Party sitting at 20%. So 15 votes so far. We've got others. So what we've got for the others? Quite a few for the Conservatives. Up for the Conservatives, I would suggest that we want to move away from the 5 elected parties just now. Technically Labour in my region and All for Unity on the second paper. Well, Michael, you know this is a free speech, but I would, as I said, guys, I personally think it's time to move away from the traditional parties. We live in a democracy. There is no right for any of these parties to continually be in power. And I think we need new ideas in the Scottish Parliament. And we need to get a different sort of mindset in that Scottish Parliament. I think the mindset is just horrific just now. But I'm glad you're participating in the poll. This is my first one I've ever done. The first poll I've done. Guerilla Party. Yeah, we're going to do the Guerilla Party's coming. I'm just been about otherwise. I'm doing things, try to do things systematically. But yeah, I'll get it sorted out. I promise I'll get things sorted out so that we get the new political party and try and absorb other people from other parties so we can absorb it in. So I hope you guys are going to run as well. I would suggest you do your political compass test. I'll explain everything. Obviously, where I am in the political spectrum, where the party is going to be in the political spectrum. Let's go and see my friends at the Feety Seaters. Love the Feety Seaters. Been doing some great stuff in there. Weekend at Bernie's. Got a great system going on down there as well. Definitely support the Feety Seaters. Leftists prove America is a racist country. Just like the Labour Party. Oh dear. The weekend at Bernie's. Listen to the Feety Seaters.
Swap 7 days of shipping for 7 hours of reliable 3D printing.
Great guys down here, great brilliant content. Looking forward to seeing them all again.
About the
So that's just me that came up with the Weekend at Bernie's president. That was me.
The plot of Weekend at Bernie's being played out in the White House as we speak. Now, I don't know whether you've seen the film Weekend at Bernie's, but it's about a couple of guys who have to pretend that a dead man isn't dead for a weekend, or I don't know, get his inheritance or something. I can't remember. I was a kid when I watched it last. But the point is, the whole thing is comedic shenanigans as they're running around trying to make it look like this dead guy's still alive. And honestly, that's what the Biden administration is turning into. And it's quite obvious that Kamala Harris is launching some kind of a bid for power. But it isn't just Kamala Harris.
I'll leave that there to let you watch that later on. But Carl's a lovely fellow as well. He's a really nice guy. Always a pleasure seeing Carl. So, what was where was I'll watch that later on. We loved you, Ricky. And it's quite funny that Count Dankula has picked a fight with Nicki Minaj and called her shitty garbage. and he's got into a whole pile of issues with the stands of Nicki. Now, I'm surprised he's done that because I know that he's a libertarian as well. And her writhing about on the stage, we should find that acceptable as liberals and libertarians. So it shouldn't be a problem her doing what she wants to do if a person wants to express themselves. And I know Carol's pretty much the same way as I am in the political spectrum. So I don't think there's an ideological consistency. We're not conservatives. We're libertarian liberals. And we shouldn't have a problem with Nicki Minaj rolling about the stage and cavorting like that. I understand why, like Candace Owens, because Candace is a wee bit conservative, and like Lauren Chen, who's also slightly conservative as well. I think Lauren Sutherland's slightly libertarian, but I don't want to put words in my mouth. That's just from observations. Let's see this.
Living with type 1
Peter Seaters.
diabetes doesn't always need to feel like a burden.
I would call Joe Biden's speech his "We the Government" speech, and I would strongly recommend that all of the Republicans and Conservatives call it that as well, because that's exactly what it is. And so the whole point of this speech is to mark his first 100 days and essentially lay out what he views as the kind of ethos of government, right?
Now this could apply to wee Nippy as well, and the Labour Party, and the Greens to a lesser extent, because they're slightly different, but they're still left-wing loonballs. So this is what Carol's saying is correct about the fascism and big government, and his political analysis and this is great, and it's correct as well.
And this is, as you will see, the complete opposite ethos of the Republican view of government, as in government should be the neutral night watchman arbiter of society that enforces...
Well, that's obviously a centre to right-wing, in the right-wing libertarian box for having a night watchman. That's what obviously King Ming, Tam Laird, has said as well, that once a night watchman. One of the reasons I left, because I'm more of a centrist, and I do believe in liberty. They said they call me a small L libertarian, but I'm more of a libertarian liberal, which Carol calls a classical liberal, which is I think pretty much the same thing, but a libertarian liberal. We're not the authoritarian neoliberals. So when Carol's talking about a night watchman, Carol's done some great stuff, and I might actually do a deconstruct, if the video's still up, on what he said about libertarianism on his Sargon of Akkad thing, which was brilliant, which I believe he's taken a few of them down. And I would say to Carol, you never placate the people. If they're going to screw you, they'll screw you anyway. You're not going to change the people's minds after they want to screw you. So it's not, you can't go back, you fight them, you don't placate them.
Contracts, protects property and secures the borders. Instead, Joe Biden thinks that you should have an ethical government, and I'm using that word specifically to harken back to Giovanni Gentili / Benito Mussolini's view of...
So Giovanni Gentili was the ideological inspiration for the fascists. Now, one of the interesting things that I didn't know until just the other week there was that there was 100,000 Jews in the fascist party in Italy, which wasn't anti-Semitic. Only when the National Socialists came down, which were anti-Semitic, and fascism and National Socialism are two different ideologies, there was a requirement to hand over the Jews in Italy. And that was obviously backed up by the National Socialists, but fascism in itself was not anti-Semitic, which is a bit unusual to say. But Giovanni Gentili was the ideological inspiration, just like Marx and Engels was for communism before fascism came on. Both Gentili and Mussolini were in the Socialist Party, so they were all connected to the left anyway, and probably influenced by Marx and Engels as well, because obviously their writings was in the first third of the 19th century, Marx and Engels. So, but a large state is where Gentili was going, everything for the state, just like wee Nippy's wanting. Wee Nippy thinks the state is God, which obviously I'm into individual freedom and liberty.
Government, which is that they should have an ethical state that deals with all aspects of a person's life.
They want to tell you what to say and what to think. Screw that. Screw them and screw that. I'm not interested in getting told what to say by you. Happy. keep redacting your comments here. Holyrood and Saturday, I don't know. Sorry, No, sorry, if you're redacting the comments, alright, I said he put the bomb in the palace and said and should have been Holyrood Parliament building. Who was it? I want to know who it was. Agree Scotland not much better for 55% still being completely ignorant, ignored by the government. Yeah, that's it. It has ever was there, but I think the British democracy has long gone. Nice, Do you not think the party system inherently anti-democratic? Well, what the party system doesn't give you, so you vote for the party rather than for the individual. So you could get an absolute crackpot as an MP, which we've seen quite a lot of them are coming through in the Labour Party just now. And because you don't have a great understanding before, I mean, I've just spent about a week or so on the SNP manifesto trying to go through it. And obviously I've got a relatively good understanding of politics. Well, I would say I've got a very good understanding of politics, but other people might not, and other people might not understand the complexity of the underlying arguments, where I do understand what the underlying arguments are and why they're moving in a certain direction. I get that. Some people who may not have an interest in politics might not get it and just tick the box for the party. So it then becomes you could conceivably get another Hitler or anybody else coming through the party system because you don't have an understanding of what that underlying individual represents. And this is where you've got the 7 suspensions and probably more from the Conservative Party. The SNP don't deliver to their own supporters. Go fire. They can't deliver because so. What the Conservative, the SNP are is just like the same as the Labour Party. They're a tax and spend and no concentration of growth. Nicola Sturgeon is on the record for saying right. So Nicola Sturgeon, we'll hear it from the horse's mouth. So she's just out about saying, "Oh, we'll give you a free bike, we'll give you a free laptop, free iPad,
well-being."
So she's now going to waffle on here an absolute lot of nonsense about well-beings and parks, and it's about raising the GDP. You have to increase growth to then be able to spend more if you're going to have a larger public sector. But Nicola Sturgeon doesn't want to do that. For some reason, Nicola knows best. I'm sure she's an economic genius with, I don't think, any of her background in economics or building businesses. But let's hear it from the horse's mouth.
Just over a mile away from here, in Edinburgh's Old Town, is Panmure House. Panmure House was the home of the world-renowned Scottish economist Adam Smith. In his important work, The Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith argued, amongst many other things, that the measurement of a country's wealth was not just its gold and silver reserves, it was the totality of the country's production and commerce.
Yeah, but you don't want to do that, Nicola. All you do is want to spend it on infrastructure so that we're all dependent on you handing out jobs as the state. Not the development of private enterprise, the protection of freedom of speech. That's what you don't want. You're illiberal. And illibertarian as well.
I guess it was one of the earliest descriptions of what we now know today as gross domestic product.
which you can't raise because your focus is not on the gross domestic product. Your focus is on how much power can we nippy get to dish out jobs from the state.
GDP. Now, in the years since, of course, that measurement of production and commerce, GDP, has become ever more important, to the point today, and I don't believe this is what Adam Smith would have intended, that it is often seen as the most important measurement of a country's overall success.
But you're now running a massive deficit because you have an over-focus on the state doing jobs that don't increase the GDP, and too much money being spent on state-controlled jobs where you are actually dishing them out. Where you say, all right, I'll give you a wee job here, or I'll give you a wee £300 here for your heating, or I'll give you a wee laptop here, or I'll give you a wee bike here. And you shouldn't be doing that. You should be allowing Scots to be freer to create their own wealth and taking away barriers to do that. But all you do is tax and spend, which is increasing the deficit in Scotland and reducing the GDP, which means we're actually de facto getting poorer because you don't know anything about economics. You should maybe read the Wealth of Nations again, Nicola.
And my argument today is that it is time for that to change. You know, what we choose to measure as a country matters. It really matters because it drives political focus.
This is just bullshit. This is just absolutely waffly fucking nonsense.
It drives public activity. And against that context, I think the limitations of GDP as a measurement of a country's success is all too obvious. GDP measures the output of all of our work.
Yeah.
But it says nothing about...
It also measures the amount of tax that can be raised through the growth of private sector businesses that create the wealth of our country. The secondary things, not that they're not invaluable, like hospitals and the fire brigade and other things that are valuable in our society, get paid by the growth in the private sector, Nippy. I mean, I should not be having to tell you this. And this is why when the historians look back in your time as a First Minister, they'll see that you failed.
But the nature of that work, about whether that work is worthwhile or fulfilling.
Worthwhile or fulfilling, that doesn't matter. What matters is you growing the economy, you absolute dullard.
It puts a value, for example, on illegal drug consumption.
Does illegal drug consumption raise the maybe if they're reinvesting in other things, but does illegal drug consumption raise the GDP?
But not on unpaid care.
But does unpaid care lead the GDP, increase the GDP? Well, if we make all unpaid carers millionaires, will that increase the GDP? Will that increase the amount of tax revenue that are generated by the private sector to pay for the public sector?
It values activity in the short term that boosts the economy, even if that activity is hugely damaging.
What's hugely damaging? Give me an example of what boosts the economy that's hugely damaging. You're just waffling a lot of shit. Unless you can give me a par example. What is it? What is this in connection with?
To the sustainability of our planet.
The Greens. Where's Harvey when you need them? Moby and the Marxists. Just once things are dug out the ground, make sure we renew things. That's all you need to do. Because it's taking time and effort to actually extract the metal, whatever it is. But things are renewable. Like trees are renewable. Like food is renewable. So what's your point? Things are renewable and sustainable. I would suggest that burying things that we've actually extracted from the grounds and not being able to recycle them is a complete waste of money and time and effort, which I do agree with you. But you would have to give examples of what you're talking about in the private sector. But this is the same as Joe Biden. Dopey Joe was talking about renewables as well. He was talking about the power of the state, that the state, like wee nippy, the state is going to hand out jobs and hand out wee treats like some communist dictatorship. Oh, here's a wee treat for you, but you're not getting it. So it's not universal, like a negative income tax would be universal to people who require it on various things. There'll be, oh, here's a wee £50,000 for you if you stay in the islands. Here's a wee £50,000 for you. And so why should some people get this £50,000, 100 people get £50,000 other people's money and other people shouldn't? Why should there not be equity in when you're dealing with people? And this is a major problem. If you're a good wee Nicola, supporter, here you go, there's your wee £300, and there's your wee £300 there, and no emphasis, which we've already gone through their manifesto, we're more than halfway through it, no emphasis on business. In fact, the next part is going to be the business section on the things on the manifesto. Let's go and see what the features are saying.
Joe Biden is really not very different in this particular view. I guess he's just a little more progressive than Mussolini was.
And they're exactly the same as Nicola Sturgeon. These two absolute doughballs should be peas in the pod. It's like doughball central. Weekend at Bernie, President, wee nippy.
A mass vaccination center in Glendale, Arizona. I asked
look at these two characters behind them. When's he going to die? Nancy Pelosi's looking at her going, you're getting an X, doesn't she? If Weekend at Bernie's died, and I think the daughter of or great granddaughter of the slave owner died, Pelosi's president, oh my goodness. Better watch her back.
I said, what's it like? She looked at me and she said, it's like every shot is giving a dose of hope. Was her phrase? A dose.
A dose. You've got a dose.
Every vaccine is a dose of hope. It's such cringe. I hate it. I hate everything about it. It's such fake idealism. No one said that. No one believes that. It's just, here's a vaccine, you need to have one. Get on with it. But instead, no, it's a dose of hope. There's nothing romantic about this. But anyway, it's good that, half of Americans have been vaccinated, though. Obviously, well done. He picked up Trump's vaccination program and continued it.
Yeah, taking credit for it, which is
he is completely taking credit for the fact, a million doses a day. Well, just like Trump was doing when he left office. Interesting. Anyway, let's watch the next clip.
We kept our commitment, Democrats and Republicans, of sending $1,400 rescue checks to 85% of American households. We've already sent more than 160 million checks out the door. We're making one of the largest one-time investments ever in improving health care for veterans. Critical investments to address the opioid crisis. And maybe most importantly, thanks to the American Rescue Plan, we're on track to cut child poverty in America in half.
Right, so this is his American investment plan. He thinks that he can just essentially spend money to solve problems, even if these problems...
So we're not facilitating the private sector to increase the number of jobs so that people can actually get richer naturally. We are keeping people in poverty, but dependent on the state. So it's not the people who are poor. The problem is the socialism to keep people dependent on the state, and thereby stopping them going out and actually getting work and progressing as individuals.
Will be caused by simply Gibbs. Doesn't matter. He's just going to continue to pour money into the hands of everyone in the United States, which includes illegal immigrants, of course. So what you have is the US government just giving people money, and this is guaranteed by the labour of non-immigrant Americans.
I would suggest it's probably going to be guaranteed by debt that will be poured onto the substantial American debt debt market, and also I mean, that can only expand so far. And even though I agree, and because I'm a centrist, I agree in the redistribution of wealth, if your focus is not on the development of businesses and giving money to entrepreneurs, maybe high growth, high tech entrepreneurs, that's where you're going to get the growth in the economy and the growth in the GDP. That wee Nippy doesn't want anything. Wee Nippy doesn't want a growth in the GDP, do you, Nippy?
In the longer term. And when we reflect on the past decade of...
I don't know what's happening with this, honestly. Guys saying fights gets smashed, how they've been banned. Nonsense. You guys are funny. I think she brings back pints of snake pies. Yeah. It's like the Muppet Show. Yes, I tell you. They don't care. They do not care. Let's have a look. Get it in this one.
Do you sometimes find the fear of what could happen is making nothing happen in your life? If so, I want to come down.
Well-being economies governments group, bringing together as founding members the countries of Scotland, Iceland and New Zealand.
Well, I don't know what Iceland's like, but if it's anything like Cinda, Ardenne or whatever her name is, Old Horsey Face, and the combination of Nippy and Horsey Face will just be horrific. Obviously, Horsey Face is now taking the arms off of our own people, and you never give to my friends in New Zealand. You never give socialists your arms, your firearms. And she's now Cinda wants to join with the CCP in China. Oh, that's incredible, isn't she? She's like a right turkey.
Reasons were sometimes called the sin countries, although our focus is very much on the common good. And the purpose
I think you're in sin with that French chick.
Of this group is to challenge that focus on the narrow measurement of GDP, to say that yes, economic growth matters.
But you don't think it does, because you're just tax and spend. You are just tax and spend. That's all you do. You're not into the growth, so we already know that from your own lips. We know that you're not into growing the economy, so that's not going to make any of us richer, because you're a dough ball.
Is important, but it is not all that it is important.
It's the second, with the exception of having children and growing the population, it's the second most important thing in governance. And the fact that you don't know that is exactly why I won't be voting for you.
And growth in GDP should not be pursued at any or all cost.
Absolute doughball. Absolutely unbelievably stupid. And it shouldn't be pursued at all costs, but it's certainly the second most important thing in politics is economic growth. And Nicola Sturgeon with her daft manifesto is only one people dependent on the state, not on the private sector, not even to develop the private sector, to increase the amount of money to cover the cost of the substantial public sector we have in Scotland. A lot of people getting jobs for nothing in the Scottish public sector, and if these jobs weren't there, I don't think anybody would miss them.
In fact, the argument of that group...
Some of them, not all of them, obviously, some of them. But you would have to go through and actually look at what each person was doing to then be able to axe whatever jobs are not given any value.
is that the goal, the objective of economic policy should be collective well-being. How happy and healthy a population is, not just how wealthy a population is. And I'll touch on the policy implications.
Now, when you listen to that again, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. The stupidest thing. Let's just get this doughball saying it again.
How happy and healthy a population.
So, I'm happy and healthy, but I'm broke as... what's your solution, Nicola?
Population is, not just how wealthy a population is.
No, I think I prefer to have a wealthy population and happy and healthy. But my happiness and healthiness is not down to you, Doughball. But my wealth is because you've obviously decided, because you're a Doughball, that you don't want to grow the economy. And you only want to answer questions from people who are sycophants. You won't sit down with me and have an actual political discussion because you know what will happen.
And I'll touch on the policy implications of that.
I need to let you hear that again. It's just, this is unbelievable. This is why you should not be voting for the SNP. I don't mind if you're a nationalist. There's things like the Scottish Libertarian Party. Vote for them. But this woman is a doughball. This is why our Scottish economy is not growing, because she doesn't want it to grow. She's a doughball.
How happy and healthy a population is, not just how wealthy a population is. And I'll touch on the policy implications of that.
Yeah, we've seen it. We've seen your policy implications with your manifesto. You're going to spend £33 billion to get 45,000 jobs. You are an absolute clown.
In a moment, but I think, particularly in the world we live in today, it has a deeper resonance. You know, when we focus on well-being, we start a conversation that provokes profound and fundamental questions.
Oh, what you do is try and get people cancelled who don't agree with you, and prevent them from actually talking before you can get elected, because you're an absolute doughball. Because you can, with people like me who would out-debate you, you don't want to have an actual political conversation.
What really matters to us in our lives? What do we value in the communities we live in?
Well, you obviously don't value the private sector that's paying for your mortgage and your French mistress, apparently. Allegedly.
What kind of country, what kind of society do we really want to?
I don't want a society where I'm deplatformed. I don't want a society where my freedom of speech is taken away. I don't want a society where social justice rather than real justice is taken forward. I don't want you in charge. I don't want a society where I've got to come cap in hand to the state to make me survive. I want a society where entrepreneurship and business thrive, not a large state where you get to dish out jobs like the Mother Superior. That's why the sort of society I want.
And when we engage people in those questions and finding the answers to those questions, and I believe that we have a much better chance of addressing the alienation and disaffection from politics that is so prevalent in so many countries across the developed world today. In policy terms, this journey for Scotland started back in 2007 when we published...
Yeah, I don't know what you've been doing. Really, I don't think this is a problem of the SNP. I think this is a problem of the greater left, which we, including the Labour Party, that we've had their policies in power for the last X number of years, and we've just doted about from one left-wing party, SNP, the Greens, the Labour Party, and we've just doted about amongst the same intellectual circle who have held back Scotland, who don't want to grow the economy, and who are basically a bunch of doughballs. And we've got these left-wing doughballs who can't actually grow the economy, don't want to, and just shouting abuse at people. Can't have a debate because they know if they get to me and they don't not shouting racist or far right or anything else. For me being a centrist, They see me as a centrist libertarian liberal, as far right. It speaks more about where they are in the political spectrum, and as you can see from Peterborough, the anti-Semitism and all the despicable things that actually happen on the left of politics.
It's what we call our national performance framework, looking at the range of indicators that we measure ourselves against, and those indicators are as varied as income inequality, the happy...
Well, the way you actually improve income inequality is to grow the economy, to grow the GDP, to get wealthier, because that brings the poorest people up, because there's more money from the taxation. To lower the taxation would also then increase the amount of money that's coming through what would be the Scottish Exchequer. But you don't want to do that, because you've just said that you're talking about happiness and, oh, what about uncared workers? And it's just bullshit. It's just absolute bullshit. It's somebody who doesn't understand economics or is ideologically driven, that they're not prepared to have a large private sector and will not grow the economy. We're going to get another 5 years of your failed economics, and you're going to be boring and a disaster, talking about institutional racism or structural racism in a country that's 96% white. What are you talking about? Do you know what you're talking about? Because you've lost me, and I had voted for you. You've left me way back, and I don't even think you know what you're talking about. The same bullshit talking points that Weekend at Bernie's president in the United States is saying is the same that we Nippy's saying. Large state, I'm going to control things. You'll do as you're told, or you won't get on. That's it. That's what they want to do.
Of children, access to green spaces, access
to green spaces. This is a spurious point.
To housing. None of these are captured in GDP statistics, but they
But if you increase the GDP, then you've got a greater tax base to pay for all these things, and you shouldn't be paying for houses anyway. The state has been a terrible provider of housing in Scotland. It's absolutely disgusting what the state has put up over the period of time, and even now the private sector's putting up absolute crap housing.
Mental to a healthy and a happy society, and that broader...
I can't believe anybody's clapping for that. Can't believe it. I think that audience must be full of women, because this is a women's things. Because this is about, not all women obviously, but this is a nurturing type of we need to spend to do this. Not how we're going to grow the economy, just how we're going to tax and spend. And she's on the record. She's now on the record for saying that she doesn't want to increase individuals' wealth. I mean, it's so stupid. It drives me absolutely bonkers. People care about a lot of different things, and I care about politics, and this sort of crap just drives me absolutely mad that she's actually the First Minister.
That broader approach is at the heart of our economic strategy, where we give equal importance to tackling inequality.
Well, oh, you're going to be tackle inequality by bringing everybody down? Oh, that's not the socialist way, is it? Oh, fantastic. You're so clever. Oh, you're so intelligent. What a clown.
As we do to economic competitiveness.
All right, so we're going to be uneconomically competitive. We're going to reduce wealth, but that's how we're going to tackle inequality. And we're all going to be dependent on the state that you've made absolutely massive in Scotland. Is that what we're going to do, Nicola? Is that your big brain idea?
It drives our commitment to fair work, making sure that work is fulfilling and well paid.
Oh, work is fulfilling under the state. Oh, let's go and see Weekend at Bernie's president again. Where are you, Weekend at Bernie's? Bernie, here we go. Let's see the features. Come on, features.
So enjoy that. And this wouldn't have been a problem anyway if the states hadn't been forced to lock down, obviously. So if people had been allowed to live their lives and operate their businesses, none of this would be necessary.
Completely brilliant analysis by Carol. Absolutely spot on.
You can see this is the very obvious ethos of the Biden, I was going to say regime.
And it's exactly the same. The Biden dough balls are exactly the same as the wee Nippy's dough balls. Two dough balls together. Absolute fucking...
I'll say administration is just bribe you with your own money.
Oh, great. Oh, that's good. So we're not going to grow the economy, but we're going to then borrow massively to pay for this gigantic, God knows what some of these people are doing, state. But we're not going to grow the GDP, we're not going to grow wealth, but we're going to just obviously borrow to actually pay for this massive state that doesn't produce any GDP or any growth in the economy. I mean, that to me is absolutely mental. And this sort of thing about equality, nobody's equal. Equal, we can be treated equally, but that's not what social justice wants to do. That wants to set up preferential groups, and that's what wee Nippy wants to do, because she's an SJW. She's an intersexual lesbian postmodernist Marxist. That's wee Nippy's justice system. So there's nothing here that is a buy for me.
Yes, I mean, it solves nothing.
It solves nothing. It's a very temporary measure, and it's just going to be just. Like, who was it? It was Benjamin Franklin or something like that. One of the founding fathers said, we'll have a republic until they realise they can vote themselves money. And here we are, the Democrats just literally pouring gold into everyone's pockets. Like, this isn't going to make things cheaper. This isn't going to improve things.
Well, it doesn't help stuff. I mean, the thing that would help things is...
it's raising the GDP that wee Nippy says she doesn't want to do because she's an economic genius.
And getting people back to work, so then you have jobs and prosperity and all the rest of it, and you can grow, not just surviving on whatever the government gives you back from your paycheck that it took.
Yeah, but not only that, it's going to be one of those things where it's like people become dependent on the source of revenue, and if the source of revenue becomes the government, then people become dependent on the government, which creates a mandate for the government to take care of its new wards. Who else is going to look after them? No one else is going to look after them. We've got to look after them, and you've got to pay for it. Let's go for the next clip.
I will not impose any tax increase on people making less than $400,000. But it's time for corporate America and the wealthiest 1% of Americans to just begin to pay their fair share. A recent study shows that 55 of the nation's biggest corporations paid 0 federal tax last year. Those 55 corporations made in excess of $40 billion in profit. We're only going to affect 0.3% of all Americans by that action, 0.3%. And the IRS is going to crack down on millionaires and billionaires who cheat on their taxes. When you hear someone say they don't want to raise taxes on the wealthiest 1% or corporate America, ask them whose taxes you want to raise.
Ask them, how are you going to grow your economy?
Average salary here in the UK is around about £26,000 a year.
I don't know if YouTube are paying Carol for the adverts on his and the feed actually making income from this new thing.
I'd like to lower taxes generally across the board, and then correspondingly lower public spending would be nice. But this is the way.
Now, Carol just said the right thing to do there. Carol said exactly the correct thing to do.
Across the board, and then correspondingly lower public spending would be nice.
Taxes. When you hear someone say they don't want to raise taxes on the wealthiest 1% or corporate America, ask them whose taxes you want to raise.
Nobody's. I'd like to lower taxes generally across the board, and then correspondingly lower public spending would be nice. But this is the way that Joe Biden, whose taxes you're going to raise? We're going to raise someone's taxes, because this all has to, of course, be paid for. Now, corporations paying 0 federal tax, well, okay, but they still pay local and state taxes. And it's not good to tax people. Taxing things doesn't create prosperity. This is just an...
but wee Nippy does, but she's not interested in wealth creation. She's interested in how... Oh, that's great. But I'll hand out my jobs to who I want to hand them out to, and you'll all be dependent on wee Nippy.
Eternal economic truth.
So you can see there from the rhetoric, he wants them to pay their fair share, a term that no one's ever able to define because it doesn't make any sense. Yeah. But the point there of them saying, okay, these guys should be paying 16 or whatever it is in the United States, and then they're paying 0. Well, this isn't a problem with the Republicans or the Democrats. It's a problem with both of them, actually.
Yeah.
So the fact that they will pay 0 last year, they will pay 0 the next year, the next year, the next year, because they have clever accountants and an unwieldy tax system the United States has.
And they have loopholes. But more importantly, as California and New York have shown, if you punitively raise taxes on a specific rich demographic, they'll just leave.
That's certainly true if you can actually get to tax them.
And that's what's happening in California just now. Everybody seems to be leaving California because it's become a disaster for the Democratic Party. And because it's become a disaster, all the people with high net worths are just leaving it. The social conditions are getting worse. People are coming in over the border in huge amounts because Joe Biden's told it was basically de facto open border time in America. I mean, Weekend at Bernie's is just making one mistake after another. And I don't know if Kamala Harris is going to pay reparations. I believe her great-great-grandfather was a slave owner in Jamaica and the West Indies, allegedly. I don't know that for a fact, but there's certainly been allegations. So I don't know if she's going to pay reparations. I don't see why my family would pay reparations to people who we didn't have any slaves. I think it was a very small percentage of slave owners in Scotland or people had slaves. Very tiny percentage. So I don't believe in collective punishments.
Because of the situation in the United States, the criticism I have there is him saying, we'll just tax the rich corporations who are paying zero. They'll pay zero next year as well. They'll find a way to do it.
Yeah.
So you won't be able to tax them. You'll have to tax the middle class.
Or they'll leave. They will take the business they have there and out.
So the middle class we're going to be hit, and then middle class will be hit with wee nippy as well. I mean, and the fact that she's taxing the highest net worth, the highest grossing individuals as well, makes it less attractive. What you want to do is lower taxes to the lowest possible that you can do. I think we've got a 3% reduction in income tax. We should be definitely going for that 3% reduction.
We'll source it somewhere else, and you won't get any of that money.
They'll put the HQ in Ireland or something.
Exactly. That's exactly why,
But the middle class won't be able to do that.
Exactly.
And we should be reducing our corporate tax to mirror Ireland's as well.
So the money that they're expecting to raise from the top 1%. Now, I'm no particular defender of billionaires or anything. I don't care. Tax them as much as you want. But there are consequences to this, as left-wingers have found out over and over and over throughout history.
Yeah, but you just keep repeating it. It's like, what's the word what's the phrase about being a lunatic? If you do it once, you keep repeating the same thing over and over again. To repeat the same thing over and over again. What is the actual thing, mate? Definition of insanity. Here we go, Albert Einstein. Definition of insanity, quote from the first appeared in 1981 and adopted by Narcotics Anonymous. It was a sort of guidance book for addicts who are trying to overcome the... I don't think it's a disease. I think it's a compulsive behavioural pattern rather than a disease. I think I don't think it's a good actually calling it a disease. I think it's a compulsive behavioural pattern. But this is where I'll be proved right, because this is the actual term, and it's warned its readers that insanity is repeating the same mistakes and expecting different results. That could be said for any left-wing party. Any left-wing party could have that. It's they obviously haven't learned from what they do. They do things wrong and will repeat, do things wrong and repeat. We'll get the same circumstances and outcome and repeat.
As this has been done, and it's currently being done in places like California and New York, and yet Joe Biden is still here going, well, we're just going to persecute the 1% with their taxes. That's not going to work. They're going to do something. They're going to do something. The evidence is all there. They'll say to you that they'll leave. I mean, why do you think Joe Rogan left California? This is just one of those things.
Why is the governor of New York saying that's what's happened to
and Ben Shapiro and their company as well? So not only do they take themselves, but they also take the jobs that go along with them out of the country, the state or the country, and then that reduces the tax base and thereby making things for public spending harder to do. So this is why wee Nippy cannot actually, all the bullshit that she's going to do in the manifesto will not be facilitated, because she doesn't want to grow the GDP to facilitate increase in wealth to pay for these things. And she'll just make all these promises that will remain unfulfilled until the next election as well. Because the primary focus is not on the increasing of wealth and the GDP. I mean, it's insanely mental for me as a politician to listen to this, and for people to vote for it is just absolutely bonkers.
Why is he begging them to stay and he'll take them out to dinner? It's pie in the sky nonsense that does not work. But as far as Joe's concerned, he's in control of the entire system. He controls everything.
And California's failing. And we all know that California is now failing, even though it's one of the sixth, or is a huge economy in its own right. The tax base is failing, and there's issues there, structural issues, because of the Democrats and the way that they're conducting themselves. And now this has gone to the president, and Biden's going to be a disaster of a president. Trust me.
Corporations, again, exactly.
And Kamala Harris, who couldn't even get elected within the Democrats, who will eventually, I think, become president. Obviously, Joe Biden's cognitive difficulties are becoming increasingly obvious for everybody to see.
Fascist did. We're coming after you. We have an ethical agenda against you. I don't actually think that Amazon and Google have done anything wrong by their success. I don't think that's the thing that they've done wrong. The thing they've done wrong is censoring people. In comparison to this, Trump's tax policy was cut taxes, and that seemed to make everything good and make people have more money. But Biden was like, yeah, but that increased our deficit. Well, why did that increase the deficit? Because obviously public spending was not cut in line with the tax reductions. That's why. But of course, public spending now is just the name of the game, which is in fact...
that's going to be wee Nippy's thing as well. Oh, let's spend here. We don't have to create any wealth. Oh, just spend there. Oh, laptops, bikes. Oh, parks. Oh, you'll all be have a great time in the park with your new bikes and your iPads that we'll decide that we're going to buy for you. Oh, fantastic. That's absolutely great. How are you going to raise the GDP, Nippy? Oh, we don't want to do that. It's just about being happy and healthy and living under a totalitarian state. And we'll tell you what to say and how you can say it. And if you don't like it, then, well, we'll put you in jail. Oh, great. That's a great independent Scotland that I don't want to stay in.
Clippers.
That's why I proposed the American Jobs Plan. A once-in-a-generation investment in America.
So Nicola Sturgeon's £33 billion in transport for 45,000 jobs. I mean, if that's not absolutely bonkers, I don't know what is.
Yourself. This is the largest jobs plan since World War II.
So they think the same way as Nicola Sturgeon thinks that the state creating jobs is better than the private sector creating jobs, because the state doesn't create growth. It's the private sector that creates growth. The growth will not come from creating a motorway, although there will be some secondary growth, but the motorway in itself doesn't produce any wealth. It may help facilitate people getting to somewhere faster, but they're now wanting to increase the size of the A9 roads but reduce traffic by 2030. We're going to have these fancy, fantastic roads, but no cars. Honestly, it's like listening to a retard run the country. It's painful for me, because I don't understand why the Scottish people are not becoming more aware of this, and it's just painful.
Creates jobs to upgrade our transportation infrastructure.
They're both looking at him going like, when's this old geezer going to pass away and give us our power? We want the power. The Skeletor and the slave owner.
Jobs, modernizing our roads, bridges, highways. Jobs, building ports and airports.
Not one of these will directly increase growth. They may indirectly increase it. Not one of these are primary businesses. These are all secondary, just like hospitals and fire brigade. Not one of these directly increase growth. It's the private sector that increases growth. The fact that Dopey Joe doesn't know this after 50 years in Congress is just beyond me.
Ports, rail corridors, transit lines will help millions of people get back to their jobs and back to their careers.
Yes, after a year lockdown for the flu.
2 million women have dropped out of the workforce during this pandemic.
There hasn't been a workforce because we've all been locked in our house, Dopey. Where have you been? Have you been out the have you not been out of the basement?
Too many. And too often because they couldn't get the care they needed.
No, they would be in the houses with the children because there was no care, because everybody was locked in their house because there was a pandemic. Man, who elected this guy?
To care for their child or care for an elderly parent who needs help.
Why is that bad? Like, why is women dropping out of the workforce bad? Well, Joe will explain to us in a bit. But he also goes on to promise a $15 an hour minimum wage.
Yeah, that's just going to destroy start-up businesses. That's a corporatist measure that will not benefit the poorest in society. And if you've got a start-up company that's got limited resources to start up, that could be something that will prevent a start-up business from actually happening.
And buying products made in America, yeah, not likely. Most that won't require a degree, so all the poor people can work for the state in these huge state infrastructure.
Exactly what Nicola Sturgeon wants to do.
Projects. Is there any country that reminds you of?
Scotland.
I mean, the auto.
China.
Or China. Building big empty cities.
No wonder she likes horsey face in New Zealand.
He's in the middle of nowhere, just to be spending and employing and making sure people are doing something. This is what Joe Biden's plan very much resembles to me. And I think that this is concerning because, again, what these people who are don't require a degree, low education, working class people, they're going to be employed by the state. They're
totally fascist.
They're going to be reliant on the state.
Exactly like what Nippy's want to do in Scotland. Exactly the same. That's all that we Nippy wants to do. Have everybody dependent on the state.
You know, getting women back into work. To do what? Build infrastructure? No, to do boring admin in offices. Okay, well, what's going to go on with their 3-year-olds? What are their children going to do? Let's watch the next clip.
12 years.
Guys, same. Can I have a shout out to my friend Nick Gurr? Nick Gurr, no problem, Hassan. I agree. She's taking away independence. As long as I'm still getting my mother's pride, Marion. Exactly. I'll go far to say she's. I mean, she's already. Oh, there's magpies.
But I want to ask maybe a tricky question, if I may. Coming from Turkey, seeing the experiences there, not only in Turkey, across the Middle East, the Balkans, for us, for instance, the word nationalism is, for me personally, has a very negative.
Socialism has a negative impact for me as well. I think moderate patriotism is okay, but I would suggest that socialism is much worse considering all the people that have died over the last 100 years under socialism.
Meaning? Because I've seen how ugly it can...
I've seen how ugly socialism can be when you're all dependent on the state.
How destructive it can become, how violent it can become, and how...
well, I mean, not as many people have died under nationalism, what you describe as nationalism, as has done under communism or socialism.
It can divide people into imaginary categories and make them...
Like the SJWs can? You mean like that?
Lose that culture of coexistence. Whereas when I come here, I hear the word nationalism being used in a...
I think you've got a cheek when you come from a country that's run by a child rapist death cult that enslaved hundreds of thousands of Europeans, took them back to harems in Turkey and raped them. So I would be very careful throwing any sort of shade over anything.
In a different way. And I doubt that. Can nationalism ever be benign, you know?
Or can socialism ever be benign? We've already seen the anti-Semitism of the left in the Labour Party. So, and don't get me started on Islam and the 300 million people have died over 1400 years of Islam. And the sex slavery and the slavery and everything else. So I'd just be very careful what we're talking about here. But we Nippy will tell you exactly what she's not.
Yeah, benevolent thing. So there's a part of me that doubts that very much.
I'm unworried about nationalism. I'm more worried about socialism.
If I could turn the clock back, 90 years to the establishment of my party and choose its name all over again, I wouldn't choose the name it's got just now. I would call it something other than the Scottish National Party.
Yeah, I've got something that'll fit. Why don't you call it the Globalist Islamo-Marxist Party? Let me get this correct. Globalist Islamo-Marxist, intersectional, postmodernist, Marxist, feminist, men-hating, lesbian party. How about that? Would that not be more accurate in what it is? That would be better. Not wanting to create, increase the wealth of the country, not being a nationalist. Why are you called? Change your name then and stop calling yourself the Scottish National Party. You're quite obviously not. You're quite obviously a Gimp, just like Sarwar. In fact, I would say, I don't think Sarwar, I think Sarwar is probably intellectually a social democrat, to be brutally honest, but it still doesn't mean that there's not a lot of Gimps in the Labour Party, as we've seen, who are now being suspended. The Gimps are being suspended in the Labour Party. So quite interesting. I called him a Gimp, and now we've seen all the Islamo-Marxists getting suspended, anti-Semitic Islamo-Marxists getting suspended, isn't it? If I might have been right.
Now people say, why don't you change its name now? And it's like, well, that would be far too complicated.
I know, but you're actually standing under something that you're not, though. You're not a nationalist party, you're a globalist shill party. So you're shilling for the UN. If you're not shilling for the UN, you're shilling for the EU. So you're obviously in the pursuit of the one world government, one world currency malarkey. Obviously, I think we have a right to understand what your underlying political agenda is. Certainly not, as you rightly pointed out, and I do agree with you, certainly not nationalism. You can't grow the economy, you won't grow the economy. You're a total doughball. You haven't actually had any children yourself. You're an alleged lesbian, in that manifesto has got nothing about men. You can't grow the economy. You're incompetent at what you do, and yet you're going to get re-elected. I mean, it's just for me.
Because what those of us who do support Scottish independence are all about. It
seems like Marxism to me. That's what it seems like. Seems like you're Marxist, and I don't want to go into what Engels said about the Scots being exterminated, but I think you might be doing quite a good job with your care homes and your drugs deaths. Obviously, you're on the record for saying you're not a nationalist. So what are you? I don't want to know what you're not. I want to know what you are.
Not be further removed from some of what you would recognise as nationalism in other.
She's from Turkey. The Turks invaded Byzantine, killed the Greeks. 500,000 Greeks died. They killed 1.5 million Christian Armenians. They've invaded Europe, took over Europe, caused sex slaves. In the Barbary Coast, I'm sure that was under the Turkish Sultan as well. So all of these had sex slaves and were brutal anyway. The Turks are from Turkmenistan in Central Asia. They're not from Byzantine or Constantinople. They were conquering and taking sex slaves all the way up to the Vienna till they get turned back by the Poles at Vienna. So let's not take lessons, shall we?
Other parts of the world.
So, I mean, really? How about the Scottish Dictatorial Party? Of course, are absolutely authoritarian. Nothing better than a slice of plain bread with home soup. I agree. She's talking away independence. As long as I still get my mother's pride, man. Oh dear. We're saying, can I have a shout out for my friend Nick Gurr? Nick Gurr. I just get that there, saying, you bad man. Bad man. I just got that. Well done. Very interesting. So here we go. Let's go back to the Fiti-Seaters.
Is no longer enough today to compete with the rest of the world in the 21st century. That's why my American Families Plan guarantees 4 additional years of public education for every person in America, starting as early as we can. The great universities in this country have conducted studies of the last 10 years. It shows that adding 2 years of universal high-quality preschool for every 3-year-old and 4-year-old, no matter what background they come from, puts them in the position to be able to compete. When you add 2 years of free community college on top of that, you begin to change the dynamic.
3 years old, and they should be at school. 3. They're just learning to...
Getting brainwashed with white privilege and anti-white racism through the anti-racism agenda that wee nippy wants to put in the schools as well. It's anti-white. We've got immigrants in here who hate white people like Anasawa and Hamza Useless. I don't know. I'm not sure this is going to work.
Speak at that age. Like they're just forming sentences at that age. My son's 6. I don't want him being at school at 3, but more importantly, I think that's more time away from his family. And what happens when the children are away from their family? Well, Biden, of course, wants to include quality, affordable childcare, so women can presumably keep working, because you've got to keep those numbers up, bro. You know, graph goes brr. You know, it's got to go up. The GDP, my holy GDP. It doesn't matter.
Well, wee nippy says she's not interested in raising the GDP. She's not interested. We don't want to raise the GDP. Oh, how are you going to pay for all this? It's eventually like a house of cards going to come tumbling down.
They're literally saying that everyone, all these poor people can work for the state. All of these families can be essentially...
Exactly what Nippy's saying.
...constantly at work, and the children can constantly be away from their parents in either, school or childcare, and that means that
it's almost exactly Nippy's agenda, manifesto. It's almost as if they both coordinated this dopey manifesto. It's just a manifesto for idiots. I mean, it's absolutely economically incompetent.
Up. That means that our graphs on the charts look great. Our numbers on the charts look really, really good. Who is this good for, though? Like, who is that?
It's good for the state and those that work for the state, because then they control. This is about control, and it's about them controlling you. They take your money and they decide where it's spent on the things that they want to spend it on, not the things that are going to be beneficial for you because you generated the wealth. They'll take it and they'll misspend it and keep you poor by actually misspending the money, not growing the economy, which is on the record for saying. So it's them that benefit from it. It's them that didn't build, the state set up to build these ferries, and Nicola Sturgeon didn't get them built. They spent £1 million developing a Scottish stock market that was never developed. £1 million of your taxpayers' money gone like that. It's incompetence after incompetence with Nicola Sturgeon, and that money just goes. Where does it go? £1 million of your money goes. I haven't been able to raise 1 penny from the state or public sector to start a business. Not 1 penny as came for, and I was in the top 13 business plans for all the universities in Scotland. And they are that incompetent that they don't want to give me a penny so that I could generate money and develop jobs for other people. That's how incompetent they are.
Good for putting the earliest years of a child into the hands of the state so the mothers can work. Sounds like another step on breaking apart families. I mean, why not just remove them at birth?
And this is the thing that women have to think about as well. Is it better to, and we have to have like 3 or more children, so is it better to take a period of time out of the workforce to actually take time and raise your children yourself? Because even under Biden and Nippy, that they're going to try and indoctrinate yourself and indoctrinate your children in this left-wing bullshit, where we're going to get an increasingly large state, we're going to get an increasingly reduced private sector, that all other good things in our society will be demonised, and it'll all be twisted round by Nicola Sturgeon.
Raised by the state at birth, so the mothers don't have to spend any time away from the workplace. Why not do that? They're going to be really effective. They're going to be really competitive. They're going to be ultra well trained, like state-raised individuals who'll be able to outcompete China in the GDP. They're going to be doing amazing work. But like the cloying hand of government.
But none of these things will increase the GDP. This will all mean either flat lines of the GDP, which I think if we look back, I don't know if you've got any. Scotland's gross domestic product is estimated at 166.8 billion, or £30,000 per person. Forecast is up, but UK one is going to be much higher than Scotland's growth. So the UK and the Scotland's GDP, that was up to 2017, halfway through 2017. So what's that? Construction's massively down. Production is going up slightly. So we're behind, obviously. We've gone massively down because we've been locked in our houses like a bunch of dough balls. The Scottish economy has an estimated annual gross $105 billion. So I would suggest that Google is probably nearly the value of the Scottish economy. But yet Nicola Sturgeon doesn't want to grow. So the estimated value and net worth of Google is 300 billion, and yet the Scottish economy is only 205. So if we invested more in high growth companies, we could actually double the GDP. But because Nicola Sturgeon is so economically inept, she's talking about a lot of random bullshit, that she doesn't want to actually invest in high growth, high net worth individuals. The £100 million for there's an IPO that is being launched by a company who has just listed for £100 billion. About it last. 2000 to 2019, started now only doubled. So in 20 years, it's only doubled. Probably about 3%. Percent per annum. But if we got a sizable companies, a global company in Scotland, you can see how a massive difference that would make to our GDP. Yeah, Nicola Sturgeon doesn't want to do it. I mean, honestly, it's just, man, it's so depressing. So Guerilla party. Guerilla.
Behind our decision to establish a Just Transition Commission to guide our path to a carbon zero economy. We know from economic transformations of the past that if we're not careful, there are more losers than winners. And as we face up to the challenges of climate change and automation, we must not make those mistakes again.
What you must do is try and facilitate high growth, high tech companies that will increase our national our GDP and increase jobs that will positively affect everybody. That's what you need to do.
The work we're doing here in Scotland is, I think, significant, but we have much to learn from other countries. I mentioned
we are North Korea.
A moment ago, our partner nations in the Wellbeing Network.
Wellbeing Network, oh, that doesn't sound like a lot of shit.
Iceland and New Zealand. It's worth noting, and I will leave it to you to decide whether this is relevant or not, that all three of these countries are currently led by women.
Yeah, if they're as bad as you, I don't know what Horsey Face is like in New Zealand. I've not been impressed every time I saw her. I don't know who's in charge of Iceland, but you've been terrible. Woo! Don't want to grow the economy. Woo! I have a vagina, you have a vagina. Woo! But I'm not very good at politics, but that doesn't matter. We both get vaginas.
They too are doing great work. New Zealand in 2019 publishing its first wellbeing budget with mental health at its heart. Iceland leading the way on equal pay, childcare.
None of these things are going to increase the GDP, thereby getting more people out of poverty, is it, Nippy?
Paternity rights. Not policies that we immediately think of when we talk about creating a wealthy economy, but policies that are fundamental to a healthy economy and a happy society.
Right, if you're not increasing the birth rate, which obviously you've personally not done either, it's not going to increase the size of the population. We're going to have a declining population. If your only policy is to do population replacements by having an open door immigration policy, which you're also on the record for saying, then what if anything that you've said is going to make me happier or more content in Scotland? There's nothing that you've said that's going to increase my happiness or contentness. You're an absolute doughball. The only thing that's improving is your happiness and wealth. And you're going to be dead soon. You've not produced any children. I would suggest that if you're a lesbian, you've not had any kids. You're literally going to die out in the next few years. And whatever evolution that's taken from those single cells to where you are just now is finished now because you've not been able to reproduce. If you're a lesbian, it's understandable. If you get penisophobia, it's understandable why you've not reproduced. But you as a model, if other women followed you, we would actually die out. So I would suggest that all your happiness and all other crap is not as important as actually reproducing. Just saying.
I started with Adam Smith.
Yeah, I know, but you don't support Adam Smith. You support Karl Marx. You're a Karl Marx girl.
Of nations. In Adam Smith's earlier work, the theory of moral sentiments, which I think is just as important, he made the observation that the value of any government is judged in proportion to the extent that it makes its people happy. I think that is a good founding principle for any group of countries focused on promoting well-being.
Well, that's stupid, isn't it? Why don't we, so we're focused on well-being, so we're not going to grow the economies unless maybe they're in your cabal and you've state-sanctioned so it's almost like we're all revolving around the state. This is almost fascism. I'll go back to Carol. This is almost a fascistic type of politics, and I'm talking about not metaphorically, you know how people call each other fascists and things. I'm talking about this is Giovanni Gentili and the way that all for the state and around the state, etc., for what he said. This is almost fascistic.
It's just all over this entire speech, essentially promising to regiment your entire life. You'll get this, you'll get that, you'll get the other.
And exactly what Nippy's doing. Oh, here's a wee bike, here's a wee iPad. Oh, here you go, there's one for you. There's your Auntie Nicola giving you what you deserve. I don't want the state to dictate to me what I'm getting and what I'm not getting. I don't want you to take my money so you can get your bad haircuts and your bad suits.
Get what we give you because there won't be any other options. You'll learn to love your servitude though, because you'll be given.
Yeah, because that's how serfs are made. That's how serfs are made.
Loads of money. You'll get all these nice benefits and things like that. So don't.
You'll sell out your own freedom of speech.
Don't worry. This will be good for you. And it's all sounding a bit Brave New World, isn't it?
I think they think Brave New World and Orwell's 1984 are actual manuals, not things to stay away from. We Nippy and Dopey Joe think these are actual tutorials, manuals to actually run a state by.
I don't think I'd describe having your child taken away and forced to go to school at that age as a benefit.
No, I wouldn't. But guaranteed for all. Again, totalitarian. Is sounding incredibly fascist. But let's get to the progressive bits. Let's go for the next clip.
We've all seen the knee of injustice on the neck of black Americans.
And let's not be around the bush. The Democrats are a racist party. They have been for years. If it's not racism against black people, it's racism now against white people or racism against Jewish people. They're just a racist party. That's their raison d'etre. And obviously now they're becoming extremely far left economically as well. I mean, you've got a bunch of doughballs there. You're going to get doughballs leading you. You're going to have a doughball party.
Now's our opportunity to make some real progress. We have a real chance to root out systemic racism.
Systemic racism? So we're not valuing politicians on what they're bringing to the party. We're basing them on skin colour or whatever. I don't know. What is systemic racism? Can you define it? Can you show me what it is, where it is? Absolute doughball.
That plagues America and American lives in other ways.
That's a weird way of phrasing it, isn't it? It's just woo.
We've all seen the knee of injustice on the necks of black America.
I mean...
Well, obviously there was a white person killed with an officer putting the knee on the back of the neck, but there obviously it doesn't fit Dopey Joe's narrative.
What a formulation. But systemic racism can't be solved with more government gibs, Joe. That's why you're in the position...
I mean, Nippy's also talked about systemic racism in a country that's 96% white. So I don't know what race... I don't know who they're saying the racism is against. What the race... Obviously, the raping of children by non-Muslims... non-Muslim children by Muslims. I don't know if that's the systemic racism and then getting covered up by wee Nippy.
That you're in the first place, in fact. But anyway, we can't talk about the problem there. So let's move on to the LGBT solutions.
I also hope Congress will get to my desk the Equality Act.
Are you going to get wheeled down?
To protect LGBTQ Americans.
The Muslims. What from the Muslims? The guy who was shooting the 50 homosexuals.
All transgender Americans watching at home, especially the young people.
Is he a midget? Is he sitting down?
You're so brave. I want you to know your president has your back.
Look at these two dogs in the back here.
Okay, so that's less than 1% of the population placated, but 90% of Twitter. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't even know what he plans to do with that, to be honest, but
No, that didn't say anything, did it? That wasn't, it was just stand up. Was it just rhetoric? I don't know.
Imagine where this is going to go. It's going to be mandating that there are no gendered spaces anymore.
Yeah, well, obviously I've changed. Obviously, you know, I'm transgender and my name's Daphne now. So I'll be looking forward to not getting any microaggressions from women when I go into their safe spaces. And obviously I'll be respectful, but I may tuck my Johnson between legs to make me look more acceptable to them. But this sort of fascism about female safe spaces is just absolutely ridiculous. Now, obviously, under these two dough balls, me Nippy and Dopey Joe. So, female safe spaces are a thing of the past.
You know, there's not going to be anything that men and women have to be separated.
I mean, what we did in the UK was actually, I don't think we did it here, but in Canada, for example, they did the whole, we will protect trans people. How will we do that? Well, we'll force people to use their pronouns.
Yeah.
That's what that means, which is compelled speech. That's not protection. That's persecution.
Yeah, but it's going to be ensuring that men and women can be in each other's spaces and each other's competitions and each other's professions.
Each other's bathrooms.
And this is surely not going to end with any problems.
I mean, it's not like we did this in the UK and now have a transgender-only prison because of all the rape that went on.
Yep.
That's not going to happen in the United States.
It's not. It's all going to be roses and light and shining.
My goodness, non-gendered prisons as well. My goodness.
Glory from the God Emperor Biden. Anyway, what's he going to say about guns? Let's have a watch.
And I'll do everything in my power to protect the American people from this epidemic of gun violence, but it's time for Congress to act as well. Look.
I love the mask.
I love his expression. Look at his face. Ted Cruz is so utterly unimpressed. So basically, he's going to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, saying things like a deer wearing Kevlar vests. That's not why you have guns, Joe.
Yeah, you don't give socialists your guns. That's what you don't do.
The stormtroopers of the newly born progressive fascist state might have Kevlar vests, which is why people want to be armed, because it looks like you...
the Antifa and BLM, the Marxists are burning down your cities.
Actually have a plan to take over every aspect of life in the United States, and it's kind of concerning to me, and I'm not even in the United States. I'm concerned about this anyway. So I can imagine that there are many Americans who are like, I don't trust this. I don't think government is actually the answer to all of my problems.
It's nice that he's announcing it, though, because if I was an American, great investment advice right now would be to buy an assault weapon.
Oh, yeah.
In the same way as fully autos.
Yeah.
And they have collector's items worth 30,000 each gun.
I bet the stocks in gun manufacturing have just gone straight up in the past couple of years.
Yeah.
But
I don't know if this is dependent on what state you go to. If you're in specific states, whether the federal government can mandate this, and obviously this goes against the Second Amendment anyway. These sort of fascists now under Dopey Joe want to take away your right of self-protection against the federal state and overpowering over and bearing federal state. That's what obviously this absolute waffle is about. The federal state over-imposing, just like we Nippies want to do, over-imposing on the individual and probably the underlying states.
But, right, so let's get his opinion on immigration.
So over 11 million undocumented folks, the vast majority of here overstaying visas. Pass it. We can actually, if you actually want to solve a problem, I've sent a bill to take a close look at it.
Oh dear.
We also have to get at the root problem of why people are fleeing, particularly to our southern border from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. The violence, the corruption, the gangs, the
These two doughballs nodding at each other.
hunger, hurricanes, earthquakes, natural disasters. When I was president, when I was vice president, the president asked me to focus on providing help needed to address the root causes of migration.
You get a couple of nodding dogs that you get in the back of cars and just stick them there, can you?
Okay, but the root causes of migration aren't actually acts of God. They're not like South America is not just a constant roiling battle of thunderstorms and volcanoes and and just murderous gangs. I mean, there are obviously those things, but like the reason that they come, and we know because they were interviewed and they were asked, is because you said that you would let them in. And why are they coming? Well, as he says elsewhere in the speech, America is an idea. It's an idea. Yes, it's an English idea. And they're coming for those Anglo-Saxon political traditions because they think that Joe will let them in. It's not because of natural disasters or climate change or any of this other nonsense. And they tell us as much.
Yeah, well, this is obviously the overarching globalist agenda that's happening in the UK, that people in the middle of a pandemic are able to come over from the war-torn country of France and just come in, even though this has been so deadly that we had to be locked in our houses for a year. But yet people are just walking in from France, walking into the country, and illegal immigrants, the Priti Patel, and because she probably can, because of the underlying globalist agenda, are not being deported.
When they're phoning on their iPhones to the people back home saying, I've made it, they're not like... Joe Biden seems to think of them as just savages who are just in the rainforest, and there's a volcano explodes and the dinosaurs come out of the foliage, and it's like, God, run to America, it's the only place we'll be safe. It's like, Joe, you have a really condescending view of like the lost world of South America. Anyway, so why is he doing all of this? And he lays this out very, very clearly in this clip.
America's moving forward. But we can't stop now. We're in competition with China and other countries to win the 21st century. We're at a great inflection point in history.
Sounds like the globalists are just like me nippy. They're both on the same agenda. Big states. I don't think they could grow the economy. Large infrastructure projects, and that's it.
We have to do more than just build back better. We have to build back better.
Oh my God!
To compete more strenuous.
This is the most popular president in history. This fellow is the most popular president, and there was no cheating involved at all in this. And you've got a woman who can actually get more than 5% of the Democratic vote. Never mind anybody else that's going to take over from Dopey Joe if anything was to happen. The senility gets any worse.
Seriously, than we have.
So he sounds like a fascist version of Elmer Fudd, who is engaging in this Darwinian competition of nations. And what else is there? This is exactly how this sounds, isn't it?
What are you guys saying? Puppet? Of course. I'm thick. I only try to find parking spaces. You won't get. Probably listen. I think once you get Alzheimer's, it's a decline. You actually decline until you actually die. I'm not sure if any people last for a long time after getting Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. I think there's certain people that have lasted quite a long time, but yeah, it's doughballs and mince, doughballs and mince, doughballs, stuff and stew. No, she would steal them. Alex Salmon. I should just redact. Thatcher was a woman. Yeah, well, Thatcher was confident.
We have to build back better. No, we have to build back better. Okay.
Build back better, folks. But he's espousing exactly the same philosophy as Hitler and Mussolini when he says these things. And in fact, he's
certainly from the large state collectivist point of view, yeah, it's not very much different.
It's a time with fascist dictators, as he brags about in the speech. And this is one of the things you can see.
And this is what we are moving to, an increasingly authoritarian, which will only help the authoritarians in society, not the rest of society. So that's something that we are moving towards. Certainly Nicola Sturgeon is an authoritarian, and now they're stopping political parties have been allowed to be registered as well, which is an issue, which just protects the existing parties.
All of this is because of the philosophical influence of Xi Jinping, as we see.
We can't be so busy competing with one another that we forget the competition that we have with the rest of the world to win the 21st century. Secretary Blinken can tell you I spent a lot of time with President Xi.
Getting 2 bags.
Travel over 17,000 miles with him.
Yeah, taking tips how Antifa and BLM can burn down the cities, burn down businesses.
Spent, they tell me, over 24 hours in private discussions with him.
Financial discussions, Joe?
When he called to congratulate him, we had a 2-hour discussion.
Did you remember him?
He's deadly earnest about becoming the most significant, consequential nation in the world. He and others, autocrats, think that democracy can't compete in the 21st century.
Quite autocratic as well.
With autocracies. Because it takes too long to get consensus.
And there we go.
So we're moving towards autocracy, are we? All right, I see. So the globalists are wanting to bring in power to the head of state so they can push the agenda, the one world agenda. So democracy is becoming an incumbence, is it? All right. And we saw Georgie Porgy Galloway also saying, "Oh, look at what communist Chinese did with the virus, and look what India did as a capitalist country, and look what China did as a communist country." Ah, right. But Georgie Porgy, the Chinese Communist Party have rejected Marxism and left-wing economics, and this is what Carol was saying, that they've now come towards a more fascist economic model where you've got the authoritarians on top and a more laissez-faire, although the fascists did believe everything for the state and to the state, but there was still private sector there as well. But we've almost got a fascist economic model. On.
That's why he's doing this. He thinks that democracy can't compete. He wants to prove that democracy can compete with the sort of speed that autocracies can change their opinions on. And he's expanding the reach of the government across the entirety of American society to be able to do this. And so
just basically following the communists, is it? Get bigger government better, is it? I can quite honestly say that the more government, the worse things get.
I've made it known that America's back. And you know what they say? The comment I hear most of all from them? So they say, we see America's back, but for how long? But for how long? My fellow Americans.
They see America's back, we don't be Joe. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear.
Americans, we have to show not just that we're back, but that we're back to stay.
Presumably for the next 1,000 years or so? God, that's funny. He also claims he's leaving Afghanistan. And that he's going to stand up to China, which I find particularly unbelievable. Let's watch.
America will stand up to unfair trade practices and undercut American workers and American industries like...
Oh, they've had 2 bags or anything.
From state to state-owned operations and enterprises, and the theft of American technology and intellectual property. I also told President Xi that we'll maintain a strong military presence in the Indo-Pacific, just as we do for NATO and Europe. Not to start a conflict, but to prevent one.
Do you have faith in Biden's ability to make sure that China doesn't undercut American workers by enslaving them?
Well, he's referencing Taiwan there. I assume so.
Well, I don't know. He's not entirely clear. I mean, he says he was speaking to Xi Jinping.
Well, no, the point that he wants the Navy and the thick presence in China.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, but it's about Xi Jinping's expansionist policies that he's referring to. But the question of labour, I think, is an important one, because like this is the problem with doing business with China, is that they don't care about their people. They don't have human rights, and so they will be forced to work for $1 a day or whatever it is. And,
there are accusations in the northeast of literally slave plantations picking cotton,
literal slave, and of course slave factories as well.
Yeah,
and so it's like, okay, what are you going to do, Joe? I mean, like Pompeo said that there was a genocide going on. Do you co-sign that? Are you going to do something? You could presumably put a ban on American companies trading and manufacturing in China. Presumably, I mean, you've taken over everything else. What's stopping you? And why will you do it? Because that would be the thing you would do in line with that statement. Of course, he's never going to do anything like this. But this is where it all comes together in this next part, where he explains again how he views the United States and its people.
We have to prove democracy still works, that our government still works, and we can deliver for our people. In our first 100 days together, we've acted to restore people's faith in democracy to deliver. We're vaccinating the nation. We're creating hundreds of thousands of new jobs. We're delivering real results to people. They can see it, feel it in their own lives. Opening doors of opportunity, guaranteeing some more fairness and justice. That's the essence of America. That's democracy in action. Our Constitution opens with the words, as trite as it sounds, we the people. Well, it's time to
we the government, that's what it is. We the government. We the totalitarian government that will decide we're going to take your money and we're going to spend it in any shit that we decide to spend it on to bribe the populace for their vote, like Nicola Sturgeon.
Remember that we the people are the government. You and I. Not some force
fascist
in the distant capital. Not some powerful force that we have no control over. It's us. It's we the people.
I told you he's a fascist.
Jesus Christ.
I told you.
We the people is the government.
And we Nippy, I mean, that's just, Biden and Nippy, it could be out the same playbook. Out the same playbook.
This is why every Republican, every Conservative should be calling this his we the government speech. Because that's what he said. We the people is us the government. Could you get a more fascist statement than this?
No.
Exactly.
That is Italian fascism through and through.
Yes, exactly. This is exactly the ethos of fascism. He's got an ethical agenda to remake the society. He appears to have nothing outside the state. Everything within the state and nothing against the state. We the people are the government. We're not in a distant capital. It's like you are the distant capital that's currently surrounded by razor wire fencing and armed guards. But we're not some distant capital. You are it. Saying that we are the people.
The border around the capital does make more sense now, because if there's no border on the country, but there is one around the capital of the government, we the people is the government.
Yes, I mean, as Mussolini said in the Doctrine of Fascism, if liberalism spells individualism, fascism spells government. What more do you need?
And Nippy's exactly the same.
I love these career politicians. I mean, he's been in the Senate 50 years, something like that, while he wasn't being the vice president and the president. And he's like, I'm one of the people. You are a career politician. You are a professional. You have done nothing else with your life in the sort of Bernie Sanders, Jeremy Corbyn way. And you guys are like, so we the people. You're not the people. You're not one of them. You're very, very distinct. And this is obvious. But and this is how he ends it.
We've stared into the abyss of insurrection and autocracy, pandemic and pain, and we the people did not flinch. At the very moment our adversaries were certain we'd pull apart and fail, we came together, we united. With light and hope, we summoned a new strength, new resolve, to position us to win the competition of the 21st century.
Right. Could that be any more fascist?
I mean, if he defined it as we the people being we the people, then that statement would have been fine. But the fact that he's defined it as the government.
Yes. We the government did not flinch. And I love this. And what's the point of it? The point is to engage in a competition, a war between nations, to make sure that they, in a Darwinian fashion, are the most superior. And it's like, God, This is actually exactly the same as fascism. I've got to hurry up a bit, but so this is just what Orwell's view of doublethink was, and I just want to frame this the media response, or at least CNN's response, in this way. So for Orwell, doublethink was the act of holding simultaneously two opposite, individually exclusive ideas or opinions and believing both simultaneously and absolutely. And it requires using logic against logic or suspending disbelief in the contradiction. Then that's a good summary of what Orwell defined doublethink as, which, again, we the people means us the government. That's a good example of this, right? But an even better example of this is this CNN article here, right? Look at this headline. Joe Biden showcased his moderate radicalism in his big congressional address. The hell does moderate radicalism mean?
It's a meme. I mean, radical centrism is a meme.
It's ridiculous. Okay. But again, you cannot have moderate radicalism. Moderate means, without great distinction from the norm, and radical is obviously a systemic change. So what are you talking about? But this is CNN.
Oh, it's a CNN. The doughboys at CNN.
Use ESOC's policies of propaganda to make you and make Biden supporters believe that this is the case. We won't go through this article because we're running low on time, but essentially they summarize it as Reaganomics in reverse. When Reagan said, the government is not the solution to our problem, government is the problem, Joe Biden has reversed this. So government is not the problem, government is the solution to the problem. I'm not a fascist, says Joe Biden.
It's not even that. We the people is the government.
Yeah.
That's what we the people is.
And, of course, government is the solution. And they have an ethical agenda to remake society, to make sure that the American who now is in school and, labouring, essentially, from the age of 3 till they finish their degrees, before they go into a job working for the state.
Exactly what Nippy wants to do, guys. No growth in the private sector. Don't forget that. Nippy wants everybody working for the state, and you'll all be happy. You'll all be happy. It's all about happiness. Green parks.
In order to make sure that American GDP is higher than China's GDP.
Because I saw some clips floating.
I don't think that's wrong, though. But the way you increase the GDP is not through. It's through the private sector. I've tried to tell you this. I've shown you details. Just one company that's worth £300 billion. If Scotland had one company that was worth £300 billion, then we would have a much greater GDP.
I'm really surprised I didn't see that clip being the main clip. That should be in front of everyone's faces.
Yeah, it's insufferable. I hope Tucker Carlson does a segment where he's essentially saying the same thing. Because the Americans, all of the Republicans need to have this singular narrative. Biden has declared himself to be a fascist.
I mean, we the people as the government.
Yes, that is an unreal thing to say. That should never have been said by an American president.
Yeah, illiberal. That's what it was. What's my baby Guerilla saying? Enough said, yeah, exactly. I stared into the abyss and saw the SNP. I think we should separate the SNP from independents. There are other parties like the Scottish Libertarian Party that you can vote for independence and there will be better things for the government and the ability to improve and greater individual freedoms. The problem with the SNP is its domestic policy and Nippy and the SJW's concept of reality, which is completely skewed. He found Nicola Sturgeon. Has he found Nicola Sturgeon's speech? Yeah, I've already put it up, Michael. It's already been up, mate. A plagiarist. Duke Sturgeon will for sure follow on. If America is full-blown woke, it's coming here next. Yeah, of course it is. Nicola's already said about systemic racism. Well, we've got Humza Useless and Enos Sarwar talking, making racist speeches against the indigenous population. I mean, come on now. Just don't vote for the Lib Lab Con Party, don't vote for the Green Party, and don't vote for the SNP. Just quite simple. Vote for somebody else. These guys are not good guys. Are bad people. They're in a hot pants suit there and a bad haircut. Right, troops, I'm out here. I hope you enjoyed that. I think that was quite interesting. tonight. Well done. I just want to thank Rotten Politics. One thing I'll leave you with, Carol has done I thought I would give a shout out to this for Carol as well, because I'm such a nice guy. Carol, we used to love Sargon of Akkad when Carol was doing the Sargon of Akkad thing. And he's actually uploaded one 2 days ago to the Sargon of Akkad, which was which I found very interesting. So if you've not watched that, go and watch Carol doing Sargon of Akkad. And A Week in Politics. What else did he do? He did something else that was brilliant as well. Great stuff from Carol. Okie doke, troops, I'm out here. Love my baby gorillas.